it in the beginning, right?
Ha Yes, no. We'll play by the rules. I wait right now to get the big thumbs up from our chat room to let me know that I'm live and I'm not just talking to nobody. I know you're there. Is there anybody out there? Yes. Okay, we are going live in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 746, recorded on Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. Does science bug you? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight we will fill your head with space, a conservative hotbed, and bug chicks. But first,
disclaimer. What is an earthling? You? Yeah, you probably qualify as such. We humans are quick to put our own picture into the frame next to the earthling entry in the Encyclopedia Galactica. But despite our impulse to take a planet teeming with life and assume that we are the most relevant thing living here, there are many forms of life that could just as easily represent the planet. By the numbers, we aren't the most populous life form. We aren't the biggest number by gross weight either. If just counting the number of legs, we are faring even worse than that. And while not being the only earthling on the planet may not occur to humans who see the Earth as theirs and theirs alone, there are some humans who have noticed that we are not alone. Humans who are interested in understanding more than their own earthling experience. Humans who therefore know more about what it truly means to be an earthling than any earthling ever dared. As long as those earthlings aren't listening to This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
and to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there, welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again, another week full of science, so many great stories, and we are here to talk about them with you. That's right, we're here to talk with you about science, and oh my gosh, okay, I brought stories about genes for health. Oh yeah, space might be closed, and I got some brainy thoughts. We also have an interview this evening that might bug you. Maybe. Justin, what do you have for us on the show?
I got a couple of stories relating to the lost city of Atlantis. Not specifically, but generally what it means in today's society.
Generally, in today, right? Okay. I'm very confused and I'd like to know more. So cannot wait. Blair, what is in the animal corner?
Oh, I brought some social bats. I brought elephants in trouble. And maybe if we have time, we'll talk about some shark skin.
I like shark skin when it's attached to sharks.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on. Everyone, if you are not yet subscribed to This Week in Science, I really want to know why. No, that's not what it is. I want to tell you that you can find us all places that podcasts are found. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. Search for This Week in Science. You can also find information about us at TWIS, TWIS, TWIS.org. You can also find information there about our 2020 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar. But right now, it is time for us to jump into that wonderful interview. I would love to introduce our guests tonight, the Bug Chicks. The Bug Chicks are Kristie, Reddick, and Jessica Honaker. scientists, educators, and besties. As you can tell, they know a lot about each other. Yeah. Kristie has a Master of Science in Entomology and is an educational media specialist. She studies biology, biodiversity, and distribution of solifuge arachnids in Kenya and wants to train teachers in refugee camps to use insects as educational resources. Jessica also has a Master's of Science in Entomology and is a science illustrator. I'm glad some people have artistic talent. I don't. Her research focuses on integrated pest management, and her research on pecan aphids is helping establish new pest control parameters for farmers in eastern Texas. She plans to continue her work in an effort to reduce reliance on pesticides in developing countries. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Yeah, this is exciting.
It is. I mean, we've been Twitter friends for a very long time. And I've been watching the work that you do in education and, really getting people to love insects. How did you get into doing what you do right now? How did you become the bug chicks?
So, well, I didn't love bugs. I have a degree, I have a BFA in theater and dance. So I was an actor and a dancer my whole life. And actually, I had wanted to study animals, but, and this is going to tie into things that we probably will touch on later on, but in 8th grade, my science teacher, we had to kind of test into a marine biology class. And I really loved all the marine mammals. And I really wanted to take this marine biology class, but she said that I had no aptitude in science. Mm-hmm. And so I should, I know. Mm-hmm. And so that I should stick to what I was good at, which was being on stage and dancing and theater. And so I did that. I stuck with it and I loved it, but there was something in the back of my mind. And by the senior year of my bachelor's degree, I was thinking, this isn't what I wanted to do. So I went back to school and got almost a second bachelor's in evolutionary biology and environmental biology. And I only enrolled in classes to go abroad to study in Kenya. And I was studying large mammals, but I had taken one entomology class only because the other class was chemistry. And I had failed chemistry in high school.
Like,
and
I'm not taking that
again. Like, I'm not a sucker. So, and also I didn't know what entomology was, but I was like, ology is like living creatures, right? So I'll take that. And the teacher was amazing. His name was Dr. Tim Yoho. And it's just sort of this tale of two teachers. Like my whole thing is a tale of two teachers. And Tim Yoho was the person who just lit me up on the inside about these amazing creatures. So when I went to Africa to study large mammals, I saw a camel spider for the first time and I was like, what is that? And I thought I had discovered like a new kind of animal, because when you first look at a camel spider, right, people know of them as camel spiders, they look like they have 10 legs. And I was quickly counted and I was like, it's a new animal, Reddicki. I was like trying to name it. And that was it. I was like, oh, in 3 years, I'm going to be back here and I'm going to study these. And that's how it happened. And then I met Jess in grad school. Like my first week of grad school, I met Jess.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't start in entomology either. I started in physical therapy. And I ended up, like Kristie, taking a class that was kind of like I guess I need to take it, in order to graduate. And so the professor was equally amazing. And prior to that point, for me, bugs, I had been really apathetic about them. It's like, yeah, they're there. It's like, I'm not a huge fan of spiders, but like, whatever. And then I took this class, and then I think for me, he sort of opened my eyes to like their actual importance in the world. And, they're, the reason why the planet runs like it does. And so I changed my major from physical therapy to entomology, went to grad school, and then met Kristie in an insect photography class.
Yeah. And then insect photography that neither of our major professors wanted us to take. Doesn't contribute to the wasn't science enough. And so I already owned a little production company where I was making bug videos for kids, and I I went to Kenya for my research and paid for her on my student loans to go with me.
Worked out well.
Yeah, for you. And
You're like, I've been paying for those.
yeah,
for years.
I'll pay them forever. But yeah, that's, and like 3 months into our trip in Kenya, she was like, where do I sign up for this? Like, how do I? And I was like, come be my business partner. And that was in 2007. And we've been working together ever since.
Nice. So that's the first part I have to comment on, though, is that the amazing disparate teachers. The one that tells you that you have no aptitude in a thing, and the other version of teaching where you walk in with no interest in a thing, and they're so amazing at expressing what their passion for what they're have been studying and teaching, that you then dedicate yourself to it. And also, it runs the risk of the first one runs the risk of like every teacher, like if every class you're like, no, you don't have the aptitude for this either.
Right.
Like you could just go from class to class being really like, oh, I guess
sure.
This is me.
Well, I guess it's not math. I guess it's not English. I guess it's not
like what am I going to do? And I think that's the thing, and that's really what it's what I based my whole teaching philosophy on. And now Jessica and I, the work that we do together is, how do I embody Tim Yoho? Is basically like, how do I embody that feeling that I had in that class where I felt. You can hear all the time that you're capable of anything, but until you feel that you're capable of something, that's the switch that happens.
And the Jim Joy, where it's like he lives up to his name with what he does, and he was just so into it, and he would just write on them. Those clear sheets, the projector things.
Oh my God, he did that. Tim Yoho did that.
Because it's same like generation,
right? They write pictures and
and it would just like write, and then he would draw bad pictures on the chalkboard, and you're like, I don't know what that is, but like he's real excited about it, so I'm also kind of excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to learn how to, and in your case, Jessica, you're like, I'm going to learn how to draw that better.
I don't know what that is, but I bet I can improve on it.
Exactly.
I'd love to know from that teaching philosophy, like going from the idea of just teaching and kind of inspiring someone to like something to actually making them feel like they can do it and they own it. What's the difference?
I think the difference is how you speak to students. I think, I just taught about 150 kids today, and I always say to kids, first of all, I say, hi, people. And today a 3-year-old in one of the classes goes, why did you call us people? We're not people. And I was like, actually, newsflash, kids are people. Like, you're short and you're still growing and like you're figuring things out, but you're people. And I think that is something that maybe doesn't happen as much as it could, where we speak to young people as though we're actually really interested in what they have to say and in their questions. And for Jessica and I, the work that we do, it has always been social emotional learning connected with the science. We just didn't know that was the name of it.
Yeah.
We just didn't know it had like a buzzword.
And I think that providing students an opportunity to experience something too. So, it's like that you can tell people, what is it that you say? You can tell people that they're capable, but until they feel it. Right. And so providing students with the opportunity to feel it, because a lot of stuff in school is just rote memorization, right? Studying to a test as opposed to actually experiencing a thing.
So we bring in live animals. We have an arthropod zoo that we bring in, and we have a moment with each and every student where we are either looking in their face and saying, what's your name? Great. Hold out your hands. I'm going to do this with you. And if you're scared, we're going to scale it back. And we do something that I call scaffolding. So if a student is like super into it, we're like, great, put in your hand. If the student is very freaked out, we start with modeling the behavior. And we have little rules like stroke, don't poke, which I just think is a helpful rule in general.
Generally?
Just generally don't poke, and then, and also, Jessica and I model how you hold things. And then we also model like what it feels like. And then I'm starting to do this new thing where I have them hold their hands up and put their hands in and walk their hands. Because if you've already done it, you can do it. Like you've already felt it, so you can feel it. Because we're dealing sometimes with students with sensory issues or students who have, never felt like they're the good kid in class. And I don't like it when a teacher comes up to us in the beginning, that this stings me. You want to get me mad. A student will come and go, well, Jaden's really a problem. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. He might be a problem for you, but in our hour, honestly, he's probably going to be the top student. So let's just give that student that chance to be the number one student.
Don't put your own expectations and perceptions on us.
We don't need to label. We can experience that, and we're good enough at seeing. Like, oh, I'm going to give you guys one chance to sit together, and this is your warning. Rise to the occasion. And if I move you, you're not in trouble. Just fair warning.
And these are often also the teachers who tell us that we're really good with kid management, classroom management. But it's like we just treat kids with respect and like they're people.
Yeah. And a lot of the teachers are so excited about that social emotional learning component. I don't know if we answered your question, but we're just kind of like, we're pontificating right now.
I like what you're pontificating about. I want to get into the social emotional learning stuff in a little bit.
Okay, sure.
I mean, to start with, though, let's go back to the idea of introducing insects to kids or to anyone in general. I mean, you talk to anyone about spiders, they're like, spider in my house, and kill it. And they're
kill it with fire. That's
kill it with fire. That's the big thing that we hear.
Yeah. How do you address? Like you said, you have scaffolding, but let's talk about the word bug versus insect versus arthropod versus how does language affect how people respond to
totally this? Language is the key. And so we call ourselves the bug chicks, and I know that that's controversial in many respects, but here's why. If we called ourselves the arthropod chicks, let's just talk about the bug part of it first, like
not the chicks part yet.
We'll deal with that later.
Because this is the more offensive in your circle is actually
So if we called ourselves the arthropod chicks, no one would know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Arthropod is
except
not
other entomologists, and we don't need to teach them.
Right, we're not teaching other entomologists. We're teaching people who don't like bugs. Most of the time, we're teaching people who don't like bugs, and most of the time. Like we teach a lot of mixed age groups. So if we go to a library or something, you're talking with 3-year-olds to 99-year-olds. You're talking with a lot of adults who have their own bias about bugs, who are either trying or not trying very hard to then place that bias on their children, right? But the children are like, oh, I want to go do this thing. Or we have an hour to kill and it's hot outside. Let's go to the library. So one of the things we do is we break that down. So we start where everyone says it, which is bug, and then we teach the word arthropod, and we talk about what makes an arthropod and we do those classifications. And then we move to dead animals, dead arthropods, which is specimens, and we talk about how they're not smushed and gross.
And we talk about why we have them, right? Because there's a lot of questions about,
did you kill it?
Why did you nail them in the box? Why did you,
nail them in the box? And like, do we kill every bug that we see? No. And so the whole workshop that we do is kind of structured in a scaffolding. We move people up. And also I really love to roadmap people. I love to sit down and go, I'm Kristie, this is Jess. Here's what's happening today. We're going to start by telling you what we do. Then we're going to talk about this tricky word bug. Then we're going to show you dead animals. And at that point, you'll get students who make this face. Or you'll get students who go, ooh. And we go, great. For the next hour, we're changing ooh to cool. And we're changing gross to interesting. Just for the next hour. Because I want you to shift the way that your brain thinks about these things. And words are one of the first ways that we do that. And then we say, if you're awesome, we're going to let you hold and pet and touch live animals. And they're all psyched about that, but they're also nervous. And then we do a grand finale, and her name is Beyonce. And everybody wants to see Beyonce. That's a trick. So,
one of the things you mentioned is the kids coming in inheriting bias. From others. This is completely happened with my youngest daughter. She still is. A bug file. She'll see a bug and she'll want to pick it up and play with it. And she has a little bug catcher kit and she'll catch it and look at it for a while and then go put it back. But at some point, she started saying spiders are gross. I'm like, wait, how did we? No, you've never been afraid of or thought a spider was gross ever. But some, kids
What
at
happened?
school saw a
Yes.
spider and we're all calling it gross. And so
And-
she was.
Yeah, and she's trying to fit in.
Yeah, she's trying to fit in, and there's modeling of peers, there's modeling of mentors, there's modeling of adults. You're bombarded all the time by like, how should I be acting and or feeling about any of these things? And it's really difficult to kind of stand in like, well, what is your actual experience?
Well, I think too, there's something about the biology behind if everyone else is afraid of a thing,
Might be handy to also,
we're being
Like
told
mom
we're supposed to
mentality.
be afraid. Everyone's running in that direction. I'm not going to waltz where everyone's running from, right? So I feel like I experience this bringing snakes into classrooms all the time. That if everyone is afraid, then it makes sense I should be afraid too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a survival thing. That's kind of baked in. And we get that. And part of it is like, what is the media telling us? What are we hearing about? Even on nature shows with the dripping fangs and the dark music and don't get me started. I can't.
We're all going to die from sharks and snakes and spiders in Australia.
Right. The 10 deadliest of
or solifuges.
Yeah, or camel spiders. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's how we do it. We do that. And then we're also willing to be vulnerable. I used to be afraid of spiders. When I was 9 or 10, terrified of spiders. And Jessica wasn't really into spiders either. And so we tell them like, hey, when we were your age, we didn't like them either. And now we travel around the world, literally, and we teach people all about these amazing creatures. So how did we do that? And we walk them through a bravery exercise. I make them take a deep breath and I make them repeat after me. I say, today I will be brave. And you, Kiki, you just talked about the language that people use. And we have this whole thing. Basically, we're giving you our bug workshop. So basically, I say, like, usually at this point, you'll have one of the students go, I'm not gonna touch it. I don't want to touch it.
Just before they even come out.
They're like, no, they're shut down. And I will use that student. I'll go, what is your name? I'll go, great. And I'll go, okay, so here's the deal. When we say, I don't, I can't, I won't, I'm not, we make our world small and we make ourselves small. If we say things like, I can, I will, I am, I'll try, we make ourselves big in the world and capable. And so I make them say, today I will be brave. And if they don't want to touch it, I will have them shift it to, I will look. They're doing the same thing. You're not touching it. Yeah. But it's just a verbal and an attitudinal shift.
And if there is any of the sort of melodramatics that happen with, like clumps of students, we'll shut it down.
Yeah. Because part of that is also students, because sometimes it's true fear and we have to be respectful of that. And we are very respectful of that. And sometimes we can kind of tell now after doing this for like 10 years that you can tell who the students are who are doing it because they're needing some attention. And so the attention that we're going to give them is not attention based on their fear response. It's attention based on the positive behavior that they're showing or the fact that they're able to express themselves. And so it's redirection of that behavior that then we put a positive spin on it. And by the end, they're holding and they've really come around.
That's really amazing. And yeah, I've seen kids come around like that before with snakes, with spiders, with other insects. And it's really a wonderful thing to see. It's just really, so moving from that kind of, being brave and enlarging a child's world, what is the SEL curriculum, the social emotional learning curriculum that you have embarked on?
I'm so excited about this.
Well, it's your baby. It's a thing.
It's your you midwifed it. I birthed it. Did a whole thing, man. It's a whole deal.
BFFs
forever, girl. So SEL, social emotional learning, we created a curriculum using arthropods to teach about social emotional learning. And basically it's actually social dynamics with teens. So we did it for 6th through 12th grades, but actually we've had a lot of interest from 4th and 5th grade teachers as well. So we're going to adapt it for those teachers as well. But basically, so we teach 10 science concepts. So the example that we love to give is camouflage, blending in, crypsis, camouflage, and also disruptive coloration, where you have caterpillars, like your lovely striped sweater right now, Blair. So disruptive coloration, if we multiplied you and there were like 15 Blairs, you all could stand real close together.
And you couldn't tell where one Blair started and the other Blair ended.
And you're not blending into your environment, but you're blending into each other. And so that's a really interesting concept. And so then we talk about those science concepts, and then at the end of each video, we have self-reflection questions for the students. And so for the blending in video, it's something like, have you ever blended in so much that you felt like you disappeared? And that, which is huge, especially for girls with voicelessness. If you blend into a group and the group does something you don't agree with, do you feel like you can speak up, or are you going to blow your cover? Which is a huge thing in teen groups, right?
Yeah, like, are you going to step in if something's going down, or are you going to film it and post it on social media?
And so these are things that kids are dealing with all the time. And so you're seeing here, these are the 10 different concepts that we talk about. And so Jessica and I handle all of the bug stuff. And then we bridge the gap into those personal reflection questions. And then the teacher takes it from there, and the teacher will moderate a group discussion with the students. And then at the end, you talk about this part.
So at the end, there's a project that they work on in small groups, and they take the things that they've talked about and the things that they've learned, and they create projects that they then go out and like implement within their community, whether it is with like a sports team or something even within like a family group or something like that.
Right.
Just something that goes out and has a positive impact.
Right
on
there.
Out on the world.
And it's called different action. And so they choose an action to take on this community. And it's a technology project because kids love technology. And so, they could do a podcast, they could do a video, they could make a song. It doesn't matter. We don't care what it is. But like, say they choose action kindness or action empathy or action tolerance, and they enact this on a group of people. And then the final step is something that I'm really
super cool,
really psyched about. So IBM has Watson, it's their machine learning program.
Yeah.
And they have this natural language understanding program. And so we're doing something called I used to think, now I think. And we're having the students fill it in online. And so Watson's natural language learning program it's like sentiment analysis. So they're taking the words and they can code these words and show you percent change from -1 to +1, and you can track sentiment and emotional change.
So it's like
in a student.
It's like data on how perception changes on a certain topic.
So so that's the assessment piece to this, because I think it's hard to make a curriculum nowadays without an assessment piece. And also we're scientists, we like data, so that's interesting to us.
I think that's amazing to be able to take the new Watson that people probably know from Jeopardy.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Beating all the people, hands down. But what it's being used for, this is a really interesting aspect of use to be able to address. And it really checks in on how effective is the curriculum, what kind of an impact is it having?
Exactly, because we need to know that in order to make it better and to serve teachers better and to serve the students. Though I think I'm going to change it from I used to think, now I think, to I used to feel, now I feel, because we just did it with teenagers 2 weeks ago in the Amazon rainforest. And do you like that humble brag? What else?
What in the Amazon?
The Amazon.
Just whatever. And they did more fact-based. They were like, I used to think this fact, now I think this fact. But I think if we change the word to feel and maybe provide an example, it will help to guide that a little bit better, since we're not going to be there with the students.
So what you're also amazingly then working on is the roadmap of getting somebody to change their mind about something, which is, I mean, can you start working with Blair on figuring out how to convince people, change people's thinking on global warming? Like, can you walk somebody through like climate denierism in some sort of a way?
Maybe, yeah. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that one of the things that, not to like sound super boastful, but I think one of the things that we're really good at is being able to put bugs in terms that people can understand and people can relate to. And so I think that, you should be able to do that with any variety of science, right? Because it affects us all. Bugs affect us all,
right?
Regardless of whether or not we want to admit to it.
We named the curriculum different because of something that we always teach about, that different isn't bad. Like, just because something's different, that doesn't automatically mean it's bad. But we as humans are so human-centered that we think we're good. And because we are like, what is that word? 0, 1? Binary. Thank you. Because we are binary in nature, we're pretty black and white in nature. If we're good and you're different, that must make that bad, right? So I'm wondering if there's something. I mean, we're not climate experts. It definitely affects insect populations, and that's kind of the way that we approach it. But that would be really interesting, I think, if we could do something like that. We would love to at least take a stab at it. Totally.
Well, so what's so interesting about the climate change network that I'm a part of, Noki, is that one of their kind of pillars that makes them different from other climate change communication networks is focusing on the social emotional side of climate change communication.
Awesome.
So definitely ringing some bells here. And I think it's an important part of the conversation, right? Figure out where people are at so that you can bring them to the next step and recognize their emotions and deal with those. Because when we try to get too analytical and take emotion out of the conversation, you're kind of denying people their human side.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone wants to take care of their family.
Yeah.
Like, everyone wants their family to be safe. Let's start there. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is cool stuff.
And it's never boasting if you're just keeping your humility humble for a moment. You're not flaunting how humble you can be all the time.
Oh, we can be pretty humble.
Jessica like never boasts, so I'm actually shocked that you.
Well, I got a little. I got a little queasy.
She was like, "Oh God, what's wrong with my mouth?"
It's like I have to add a caveat, guys.
So with the curriculum, what are you? I mean, I am number one. I think it's wonderful that it's something that bugs, insects, you would never expect that you could teach kids, how to be human with insects. So that, I think, is an amazing connection there.
I mean, those 10 different things, like one of them is called misunderstood, and it's all of these misunderstandings that we have about basic bug behaviors, like from June beetles and how they fly at you because they're crappy flyers, to, I think I talk a lot about camel spiders in that one. And then we have this other one called What's in a Name, and we talk about death feigning beetles. And all people hear is death beetle. They didn't hear the middle part.
Feigning.
But they're also called blueberry beetles. And so, it's like, it's like the way
Thank
that
you.
was beautiful.
That was my death feigning beetle. Just
that was very nice Thanatosis. It was beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So using the words that we use, and we always do try to tie it back to empathy for these amazing creatures that share our planet. But at the same time, how can we move through the world in a different way? I want to help change our perceptions of ourselves, not change. And actually, we got a comment on this on Facebook, so I hope this dude's listening. I don't have an ideology. And also, if ideology is empathy, then, put on your Sunday best and come to my church, because I will preach empathy all day long. But but it's not about changing someone's perception to what I think. It's about challenging your perception of yourself, others, and the natural world. That is what the curriculum is meant to do. And I think that is what school should be about as well, giving us the critical thinking skills to sit back, and also the digital and scientific literacy to be able to digest information, and not just digest it, but understand it, to use the critical thinking skills that you have. I'm like all worked up.
And the personal wherewithal to understand that you're not the center of the universe.
Boom! Right
Like,
there.
Oh, see, and this is the problem, because you do have to change people's minds just to educate them in the first place. I mean, that's the process of education, is changing the way you thought about things, challenging the way you thought about things. And there are people who resist education even. So the thing about telling there was kind of this whole conversation over the weekend about this, but there is a difficulty in. We were talking about convincing somebody that they're wrong, that you can't do it with facts, that you do have to take these intermittent steps to get them to changing their position without losing face and without attacking.
So I would say part of that is exactly the language that you use there.
Yes.
And telling somebody that they're wrong or teaching them that they're wrong is not the goal, right? Teaching them to think about it differently or accept new information is a different way to think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the sandwich technique, where you like give like a good, that's really awesome, this blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, but also, did you think about this? Because this and this and this, and isn't that amazing? And, you know, I love having these conversations because it's always interesting, or, whatever. Bad news, good news, bad news.
I actually have a question.
Good news, bad news, good news.
Because as I mentioned before, I take animals into classrooms, but I don't take invertebrates normally. So with snakes in particular, another misunderstood animal, right?
Yes.
I have noticed that when I bring a snake to a kindergarten classroom, everybody touches it, no hesitation.
Yep.
If I bring a snake to a high school classroom, it is a big to-do, and it takes sometimes 10 minutes for me to convince people to touch the snake. Is this something that you see where the biases actually increase and the fear increases as they age?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fear increases 100%. That is something that we see all the time. And
Kids
actually,
are fearless.
Yeah, little ones are usually fearless, but it is all of this input from media, from peers, from what is socially acceptable. A girl who likes bugs when she's little, we just got an email from a dad. This kid's been following us for 7 years. And when she was little, she would send us videos and all these things. And now she's in middle school and she's in a bug club, but she's starting to think maybe she doesn't like bugs anymore because of pressure from her peers.
Because it's not cool.
Because it's not cool, or because it's not girly, or because it's not acceptable. And Jess and I were teaching. We taught a couple years ago at a juvenile correctional facility for girls.
That was great.
Oh my God. I'm sorry if I cry. I apologize.
It's one of the best
very
workshops
emotional.
we've ever had.
And we're teaching, and these kids are in a tough situation in their lives individually. They're in a tough situation together in this correctional facility. We brought in Madagascan hissing cockroaches, which are like, totally a normal thing to bring in for outreach. It's like, at this point, we're like, meh, cockroaches. But we brought them in, and these girls had never seen them before. And of course, when you're dealing with an incarcerated population, you're talking about already bias built into that because of the population that is there, racial bias and economic bias against populations of young kids. And so we're in with these teen girls, and everyone was freaking out about petting this cockroach. And I picked this one girl who was very very loud and very anti-touching it. But I could tell that if she did it, everyone else would do it. And so Jessica and I said, people really think teenagers are really scary. You ever feel that way? Like if you're in a group of teens and you're walking down the street, and she's like, yeah, I feel that. And I'm like, and I said, does that? And she was like, well, I never want to feel that way ever again. Like misunderstood that way. And she was like, yeah, okay, I see what you're doing. And she stepped up and she touched it. And every single other girl, I'm not joking, just filed in line. And they were like, well, if she touched it, I'm going to touch it. And it became this, not like one up, but like a supportive one upmanship.
Yeah.
It was, Jessica and I were.
They were crying. We were crying.
Everyone was crying. We'd let them name our
the guard was
scorpion.
crying.
The guard was
like,
we'd let them name our scorpion. And we had this scorpion
Touching
for
a cockroach.
years. I know, touching a cockroach.
So
And
cute.
it's such a big deal. And and they named our female scorpion Essence, which is like the greatest name ever for a big giant forest scorpion. They named it Essence. And so from then on, we had to tell all the rest of the students that we taught. They were like, "What's the scorpion's name?" We were like, "Essence." Her name is Essence. It was so great. They wrote us letters. Like, it was amazing.
I like the way that you had the wherewithal to pick the right girl out of the group to sort of be the leader, and also that she was being brought on board.
She got it.
Yeah.
You can see that light,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's just from teaching. And any person who, like, we're not certified teachers, you know, like we don't have teaching certifications. But I used to train. We train teachers.
and
do all
you know,
sorts of
when
stuff.
you do so many of these, you learn how to read a crowd.
Yeah.
And like who the people are who are going to be, you know, the loud ones and the quiet ones, and
also making sure that you are supporting the quiet ones, because sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I always want to make sure in a group that I am asking to make sure if someone has a question or if they want to answer. And when a boy speaks over a girl in one of our classes, we immediately are like, hey, I appreciate your enthusiasm. I just want you to notice something. When Sierra spoke, or you know, when Taylor spoke, everybody listened to him and everyone was quiet. But Sierra started to speak and you started to speak over her. So I just want you to notice that.
Boy.
I want you to notice it for the rest.
There'd be a lot of interruptions on this show. We get a lot of talk.
Yeah. So that's what we do. That's what we do.
Where can, if there are teachers in our audience who are interested in your social emotional learning curriculum, where can they find it?
Yes, they can find it on our website, thebugchicks.com. And so right there, you can buy an individual teacher license, and that stays with the teacher. But if you want this for your school, like if a school wants it or a district wants it, they can contact us, and we're doing, you know, district, and it's lifetime license. So we'll do that for, you know, we'll cater it towards your school or your district. So that's where you can find it. Oh, but
and we made a discount code for those who are listening to this podcast. So at checkout, when you put in TWIS bug, then that'll give you 10% off the total price of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's pretty special.
And you also said something that was, I thought, very apt, that you had midwifed and birthed this thing into existence.
Yes.
One of my favorite writers about education, John Dewey, describes not the Dewey Decimal System. This is the architect of the first person who came up with an education system in the United States that wasn't memorization. But he very explicitly describes education as if it were a living thing, of knowledge being a living thing.
Yeah.
And that it has to be reproduced, otherwise it's a thing that dies. So what you are talking about is very resonant of his writings, and the way you talk about it, I can tell that passion's really legit, really there.
We, you know, I kind of wrote it, and then Jessica came in and we filmed all the videos, and we made all, you know, and it's tied to NGSS standards and to CASEL standards, which is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And so it's tied to SEL standards and next generation science standards for teachers. And we provide further investigations, experiments they can do.
That was its own labor pains.
That was its own labor pains. But then, you know, we workshopped it with teachers at the National Science Teachers Association for 3 years before we launched it, to make sure that we were on the right path, because we also wanted to make sure that we were using proper language when we're asking questions. We didn't want to ask questions in a way that might do more damage or might harm, students. And we also have one in there that I will talk about called Arms Race, where we talk, violence in schools and shootings in schools is something that happens all over the country, and students are bearing the brunt of it right now. And so we decided to attack that concept. And so we talk about defenses that insects and other arthropods use, and then we let the teacher decide how they get into that line of questioning. So
exactly sort of like how deep you want to go into that dive, or if you just want to stick to the arthropod stuff.
Right. So it's very adaptable for teachers and for different subsections of the United States, because different students are going to be dealing with different things in rural America versus the cities versus different things. So it's highly adaptable for teachers.
Nice.
This sounds amazing, and I just love it. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Thanks. Yeah, and I hope that it is adopted by science teachers and not necessarily science teachers. If you want a different way to approach getting concepts across to your kids in your classrooms, that this is a really, really sounding curriculum.
Guidance counselors are really liking it a lot. Guidance counselors and school psychologists are.
Oh, no doubt. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
They get okay. So which was your favorite insect? Okay, now I know what to focus on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, totally.
They do the Rorschach blot test, and they're like, "Oh, you saw a wasp? You saw a butterfly? No,
right?
No.
Yeah. Here's this video. Let's talk about this. Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Yeah. In your working with kids and in the teachings that you do you find any questions that are asked more often than others about insects?
Yeah,
I would say so.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
I'm drawing a blank right now, but I can see me in every workshop with Jessica where we're like, that question. Definitely, like,
just in general, will it bite me?
Will it bite?
Does it bite? Does it sting?
Does it sting? But also, students are really interested in bullet ants. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Students are interested in things that sting them because of a certain YouTube channel, certain someone on YouTube who forces animals to sting him.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get into it right now because I don't think you allow cursing on your podcast. But so we get a lot of fear-based questions about that, and also
and a lot of that sensational, did you know this? Did you know? And we're just like but actually
pseudo bravery kind of stuff.
The fronting,
yeah.
There we go. Good word.
Yeah. So we really combat a lot of that with the work that we do. Yeah, we're kind of trying to undo some of those.
Yeah, because they're sensational enough and they're amazing enough. You don't have to turn them into something they're not.
Yeah, you don't have to. That's exactly right. They're such incredible creatures, and everyone's got their own way of doing things, and that's fine. But one of the things we have wanted for a really long time that has not come to pass, and I think we might need to let it go, is that we've wanted a wildlife show for a really long time, and we got passed over just recently. We've been working with a production company, and a big network really wanted to hire us, and then they backed out at the last minute because people don't want to learn about bugs. But then they hired someone who's sensational, who is a man. So
right. I was waiting for that one.
Yeah,
it could go without saying.
Who was it?
We've been asked to wear leather cat suits, flannel cat suits, to talk about insects. Yeah.
What?
Wait.
They wanted me to
How
talk
does
about
that?
Yeah, they wanted me to talk about insect mating, because I used to teach this course, and I did a big thing about insect reproductive strategies, and they wanted me to do it in a cat suit.
That would, of course, make it What?
Way more interesting,
No.
right?
Right.
No.
And
And
then
then we had that one guy who told us that we needed to delete all of our videos and close all of our social media accounts and reopen it up as like a like it is. Have you guys seen Green Porno with Isabella Rossellini?
Yes.
The
Yes.
she's
insect
so
mating?
great.
It's super
love
cool.
them.
And we do a version of it where we do dating, where I wear a mustache and I'm the male and she's the female, and we do how insects date, because we didn't want to rip off Isabella Rossellini. But this guy wanted us to do
Like
bug
sex. Yeah, like sex tapes.
like mating bugs, but with a green filter over it, like Kim Kardashian sex tapes.
Yeah, and then he, in the next sentence, went on to talk about how his daughter was going to a STEM camp and how she was super excited about it. And we were just like, I don't think we want to work with you.
Then we had a production company. We were actually filming a pre-pilot, and the production company, I was explaining about spider silk and tension. I was explaining about tensile strength, and I was like, I think a visual will be really helpful here. There's a really great graph that shows this, and I can explain it if you want, and we could just pop it up. And he was like, we'll have a man explain the science. It was our show.
Like, to our face, he said that.
He said it to our face.
And it was just like, it was a moment where she and I were both like,
Yeah.
Cool.
all right, so
we're
that's
not,
a wrap.
we're not there yet, and
No.
I feel sad that I feels like we're missing our chance. And then there's like an ageism thing too. Like as we get older, we're missing our chance to do this. But if that happens, I want to be very supportive of younger, competent, learned women who might get that chance. So maybe we
Well, let's hope that
help
it's
produce or something.
younger,
I
competent,
don't
and
know.
learned women
Let's
who
hope.
get that chance.
And I'm right there with you. I will be the older scientist, female scientist, rooting the younger scientists on with a little sadness, but
Yeah, bittersweet, right?
a little bittersweet, but yeah.
We've tried for 10 years.
Yep.
With
I
like,
tried. I tried for many years also, and finally was like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I was told to my face that I would never host a show by myself. That if I ever got a show, it would be with a male co-host, and them being more dominant in the show. Like,
That's
And
why
I-
you're always shin kicking me. I thought it was
Justin,
just,
I didn't do
He gets angry, and I get this really
wasn't
kick
me.
this really hard shin kick under the desk. That's why we're in this.
Justin, you're
location.
talking over the females right now.
I'm doing it
It's
again.
time
Oh,
for you to
jeez.
like tone it down.
Oh, jeez. I'm so
Totally
I'm so
kidding.
sorry.
Totally kidding.
I'm the problem. I had no idea.
So in the chat room, somebody is putting up ideas, Curiosity Stream and others. I mean, there are the wonderful thing is now we have the web, we have the internet,
We can do it on our own.
and we can do it on our. Yes, we can do it on. You can do it on your own. You're creating videos. You're creating this amazing content that is being used across the country in universities, in high schools, middle schools.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
I mean, and if you ask the kids that you're visiting, they're going to tell you TV's over anyway.
I know.
TV
So, okay, boomer. Yeah, totally.
Okay, boomer. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think after this next round with this production company, I think Jessica and I just need to do what we should have done maybe 10 years ago. But we got off YouTube originally because there were so many nasty comments.
Yeah.
And we were
Yeah.
trying to be in schools, and we didn't want to expose kids to the nasty comments. It's a catch.
Now you can turn comments off.
And now we're going to turn comments off.
Yes, you can.
So I think we're going to get back to it. I think we need, obviously there's like funding and things like that. But
Yeah.
I think we're getting back to it. We're excited.
I mean, the beauty of it is on the internet, you can control your message, you can control your identity.
Yeah.
You don't have somebody telling you that's off brand. You can do
Right.
whatever you need to there. And it's way cheaper. So
And,
It is.
and that's the other thing. That's the other thing, Kiki. If ever the show had been picked up, you'd be doing spots for pharmaceutical companies. You'd be telling them what food. It would be really quickly degenerate if somebody else had content control. I mean, it's
that's
not. I mean,
truth.
the sexism part of it is a huge thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing is just the messaging about science is on a ridiculous level. What actually is allowed to be
Exactly.
to the greater population is
maybe it's just a blessing in disguise. That,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe we wouldn't be getting. There's so many good science shows out there nowadays that I don't think could be that would exist ever in the mainstream media form. But now, as they see an appetite for it build, then maybe it becomes the mainstream.
Right.
I mean, curiosity streams, I think, is a pretty good example of some of taking, science documentaries and packaging them all together and saying, here's all the stuff you actually look for when you buy one of these.
And I think it's Curiosity Stream was founded by the guy who originally founded the Science Channel, but then he was like, money, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do because of advertising and this
I
and
couldn't
that.
actually teach
That's
science.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so
Awesome.
he started Curiosity Stream. So
I think I might, maybe.
For the listener, they're making a signal like they're going to type to the Curiosity Stream and make a connection. So
My miming and face does not translate on.
You can't hear your silent movements.
can't hear it on the audio.
I mean, if there was ever an endorsement to check out the YouTube, now's the time.
All right, so we're going to take a break and we're going to go into the rest of the science-y part of our show. Are you going to stick around with us, or are we going to say goodbye right now?
Yeah, we'll stick around.
But we'll be quieter and let you know.
And I might need an extra minute, so I might not be back right away.
Okay, so the bug chicks, if you want to know more about the bug chicks, you can find them at their website, thebugchicks.com. And that is where you can also find a link to their SEL curriculum. And what was the discount code again?
TWIS bug. BUG.
TWIS bug. Woo-woo.
With bug.
TWIS bug. This is This Week in Science, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with science for you. Stay tuned.
Can't explain things you've heard with more than intuition. A lot of reason shows the way to go.
Thank you for listening to This Week in Science. We are so appreciative of the fact that you have decided to spend your time with us, that you are here joining us for the science, for this wonderful interview with the Bug Chicks. If you would like to support what we do, we try to make it nice and easy for you. You can find information at TWIS.org. TWIS.org is our website where we have links to all sorts of things like our Zazzle store. So you can click on the Zazzle store link in the main header bar, and that will take you to our Zazzle store where there are all sorts of cool products. Hats, pillows, tote bags for your groceries, t-shirts, aprons, hats, wonderful things with the TWIS logo or with images from past Blair's Animal Corner calendars. Speaking of Blair's Animal Corner calendar, you can click on the big frog. That's right, it's not a hypnotoad. It is a frog. And it is the cover of the TWIS 2020 Animal Corner calendar. Click on that. You'll be able to pre-order the 2020 calendar. We'll be ordering those soon and beginning to send them out to you so that you can get them in time for before the holidays, before the end of the year. So if you want to get yourself a gift, get someone else who loves TWIS a gift, get someone who loves science and animals a gift, this might be a really great option for you because we, in addition to letting you know when TWIS is every week, we also have a lot of science holidays in this calendar, keeping you up to date on all the science shindigs that happen throughout the year. And Blair has put together some amazing art that is stained glass inspired for the calendar this year. Moving on forward, another way that you can support us is clicking on that Patreon link. Click on the Patreon link. It will take you to our Patreon page where you can choose your level of support. $10 and above every month, and we will thank you by name at the end of the show. But there are many options, many different levels of support for those of different abilities, financial abilities, and it's only once a month. And we give you little gifts in return because we thank you. We really do thank you for your support of This Week in Science. We really could not do this without you.
We can explain things you've heard with more than intuition. A line breeze that shows the way to go. New conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience.
And we're back. You're listening to This Week in Science.
We are back. We have the science coming to you. But before we get to the science, it's time for This Week in What Has Science Done For Me Lately? This week, I have an anonymous note. The anonymous note reads, Dr. Kiki, I'd like to share a true but crazy story involving the microbiome. When I was born, I was unable to process breast milk or lactose from cow milk, and I had to be put on a soy milk. Sounds about right. When I got older, around 4, this allergy seemed to go away, and I was able to drink milk all through my childhood with only a slight souring on my stomach that left my breath kind of bad. That can happen as well. I later had a surgery, and the anesthesia apparently killed off a lot of my microbiome, and poof, I was lactose intolerant again. It makes my stomach hurt and gives me diarrhea, so I just avoid it altogether now. What happened? When I was 4, my mean older cousin decided to feed me some waste from our outhouse. That accidental fecal transplant made me able to mostly digest lactose for over 30 years until my gut biome got decimated. Now, this is the honest truth. It sounds nuts, but when my cousin admitted doing this pretty much on her deathbed, it hit me that this had to be what cured my lactose intolerance
God.
and why it came back after my surgery.
The whole time I'm like, yeah, okay, anonymous, fine. Now I understand why. That's
is
interesting.
The most amazing story. Yeah.
I mean, it's a single data point, and so you might go, okay, this could be this circumstance, right? We don't know that it's causation. It could be correlation. We don't know these things. It's not an experiment, but you know, the timing of everything, and we talk about
the microbiome.
fecal transplants a lot these days.
And there are animals that eat their parents' poop
Exactly.
to feed the microbiome.
Best beetles do that, absolutely. But how do you not know if you're on the receiving end of someone feeding you something from an outhouse? I think she did know.
No, not
The person
until-
admitted it on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Repressed memories.
Which, by the
those
way-
are
I
real
feel got
things.
snuck into something.
By
They
the
put
way,
it in their
Yeah.
milkshake. Or,
By the way,
I don't know.
folks,
Sorry
if
if
you're out
anyone's
there listening-
eating a milkshake right now. I apologize.
good tip for life. If you have something that you haven't told that is of this nature, don't wait till your deathbed. Don't let those be your last words.
No.
Don't let that be the parting memory.
By
Get
the
it out of
way,
the way now,
Yeah.
and then you'll have something better that you can reveal.
It's a crappy way to go.
Ooh.
This one.
I
That's
do
hardcore,
wonder,
though.
though. It is, yeah. And I do wonder. I mean, I have lactose intolerance. I wonder at times.
You
I'm
know,
like, could be, I'm not going to any outhouses, and Dr. Justin's not a real doctor would never actually tell you to go to an outhouse. So
No,
nobody
'cause-
take this as medical advice.
no, because
Anyway.
Dr. Justin's not a real doctor. Poo pills have been selected from a known biome that can already digest milk and doesn't have gastrointestinal problems. So
Right.
I
And
still don't.
Right.
They have a very selective process too for fecal transplants, right? Like they're
They do.
really
Well, and they refine it down to get rid of absolutely
all sorts of
anything
stuff.
that might,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that's
undesired.
infection from something like that would be just terrible. So yeah,
and it
it's
has
very-
happened. It
It
has
has
happened.
happened, right? Oh my goodness. Well, all I can say is if your cousin actually did this to you, shame on her. If your cousin, but you're very lucky for not getting sick, and what a bonus to be able to eat lactose products for most of your life.
I think the real bonus is not having ever known it had happened.
Not
This
ever.
is also
All
a big
said,
bonus.
yeah.
Thank you for writing in with your story. Absolutely appreciate it. And if you want to write in with your story of what science has done for you lately, send me an email, Kirsten, Kirsten, at thisweekinscience.com, or leave us a message on our Facebook page. That's This Week in Science on Facebook. Moving into the science. Hey, you know what? Space might be closed.
Like for today?
No, like forever. Like it's always been closed and we just didn't know it. And not just space, but I mean like space-time, the universe, the cosmos, everything closed. As opposed to flat
Finite
and
loop?
ever.
Oh.
Yes, as opposed to flat and ever expanding. Researchers reanalyzing Planck satellite data of the universe have published in Nature Astronomy this week this new analysis that instead of a flat expanding universe, as pretty much all the data and experimentation that we've ever done has suggested we live in, nope, they say, quote unquote, it clearly points toward a closed model. And in this closed model, I mean, it's really fascinating. It basically means that our universe is like a loop. And if you were to shoot a laser beam out into space, that it would end up coming back around to where it started at some point. This is mind-boggling.
So it's
and
like a
blowing.
Pac-Man scene is what you're saying. Like you drive your
Asteroids.
Pac-Man off the edge and then it comes back on the other
It
side.
comes
Right.
right
Like
about,
asteroids,
right
yeah.
around. Yep, exactly like that. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
Is it like
so
a donut? Like a
not like a donut. Nope, not like a donut. More
Like
like
a Mobius
sphere.
strip?
More like a sphere. Just, but you're inside the sphere, and maybe I don't. I honestly have a hard time comprehending the idea of a closed universe.
what's
as opposed to
outside the sphere?
the same thing that would be outside our flat universe, which is whatever's out there, but is really nothing because it's nothing, not our space.
I mean, it's not
What?
needed out there.
Well, so
We should not have stayed. We're not bringing anything to this conversation.
Don't worry, I'll be dumbing it back down real soon. Don't worry.
when you get outside of what they're talking about our universe, though, you're also talking about you're going beyond where time exists.
Yes.
That's where things get really wonky. You're not just talking about like, we ran out of space and then
Right.
bonk, we hit the edge. It also would mean that time, because time is an artifact of the Big Bang, as is the expansion of space. So they're talking about it's best to leave it with an analogy of a donut. I think that
Fair enough. Okay.
there's
We'll
parts
leave-
that aren't donut.
I like donuts. According to this analysis, though, what they're looking at is the cosmic microwave background radiation. And this light has a particular density to it. And the CMB, cosmic microwave background radiation, you can listen to it in the static on your radio or your television, if that still happens in the world. You can tune in the static of the beginning of the universe. This density over previous measurements that suggest that the universe had a very specific density to it that led to gravitational lensing that has led to the ideas of expansion of the universe as the way we know it. However, this new analysis, the lensing of the CMB, the universe may be about 5% denser than we thought. And if that works that way, then that means that the way we're looking at the universe is kind of wrong. This new analysis fixes some problems of like the cosmological constant. Don't have to worry about that so much anymore. Things get fixed that were kind of fudge factors to begin with. One thing that does not get fixed, though, a couple weeks ago, Justin, you talked about a cosmological crisis in the measurement of this background radiation and the light that we're seeing, and how different measurements, say based on supernovas versus the Planck satellite constant and like others, they've come up with different measurements. And if this new analysis is right, then that gets even worse. So in some ways, this makes things better, but in other ways, it makes it worse. And really, the researchers are saying this is one reanalysis, and a lot of cosmologists and astrophysicists are actually coming out about this analysis and saying, no, this is a statistical fluke. It may be the same kind of statistical fluke that is equivalent to flipping 11 heads in a row, which really never happens, right? It just is not, it's statistically unlikely. But when you're talking about the number of molecular and atomic interactions that have happened since the beginning of time, then that is a drop in the bucket, and it may be a statistical fluke. So everyone's saying ignore it, except for the people who wrote the paper. And there may be, I don't know, this may lead to a new direction in looking at our universe and questioning the Big Bang and what exactly is going on. What do we even really know, everyone?
Nothing. So this is the thing that happens in science over and over and over again. You have this historical knowledge of how something works or what something is. Somebody shows up and says, I have another theory, and then they're burned at the stake or laughed out of the lecture hall or whatever it is, right? And it still happens today. This is a great example. Somebody comes in with an alternate idea, and they're just going, don't listen to him. Instead of maybe, I don't know, just testing the data again or collecting some more data and testing the theory better, seeing if it's replicable. I don't know. Come on, guys.
But what it does mean is there's a lot more study to be done in cosmology. For all you graduate students, you have long careers ahead of you.
We have placeholders. Dark energy isn't a thing that we know what it is. It's a placeholder for a massively unknown dark matter. We can tell that it's there, but it's still a placeholder for the thing that's affecting it that we don't understand. And again, to take it down to the simplest form, we don't have a mechanism for gravity. We know what gravity is associated with mass and things like this, but we don't actually know why it works. We don't know.
We have
and that's such a fundamental thing that we all encounter. It's not a giant magnet. That's the thing. We don't know the mechanism for it. So for as much as we do know about how things work in the universe, there's a lot of very simple questions that we can, touch and feel and interact with, even like gravity. Just dropping an object to the ground, we don't know the mechanism behind it. We know it's related and correlated to things, but we don't actually have a mechanism for it. So, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I look forward to many more papers and conversations about this new idea and these new thoughts. It just means more looking at the data, more conversations. And as we get older and these graduate students get older, maybe they have a long, healthy future to look forward to, thanks to research that is currently making old mice live healthier. Because that's what we do.
We're like, tell us everything.
Yeah, that's right. Researchers from the Weiss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard University and Harvard Medical School. This is affiliated with George Church and his efforts in aging and synthetic biology. This report has been published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. What the researchers did is they injected virus-based gene therapy into mice who were old and suffering from obesity, diabetes, heart failure, and kidney failure. And they found that the genes that they injected into these mice made the mice healthier. Yes. So these genes, FGF21, STGF beta R2, alpha klotho, these are a number of genes that have been associated with reversal of weight gain in type 2 diabetes. These genes have been associated with increased health and lifespan benefits in mice. And in the experiments previous to this, the mice had been genetically engineered to overexpress these genes. And so these were like just super healthy mice. They're overexpressing them and they were doing really great. They lived long, healthy lives. So this time around, instead of overexpression of the genes naturally within the animals, they took mice and then fed them a very high fat, high calorie diet until they became obese and diabetic, and then gave them this gene therapy. The virus vector allowed the gene to be inserted into the cells, and the cells then repaired. They complete reversal of weight gain with the animals that were given the FGF21. Diabetic mice following a single gene therapy administration and its combination with STGF beta R2, this reduced kidney atrophy by 75% in mice with renal fibrosis. Heart function in mice with heart failure improved by 58% when they were given the STGF beta R2 by itself or in combination with FGF21 or the other gene. So combined therapeutic treatments they found of this FGF21 and the STGF beta R2 successfully treated all 4 of the age-related conditions.
That is so awesome.
And it didn't change the genome. This isn't CRISPR. It isn't going in and editing the genome. It's just going into the cells and adding the gene in, and then they got better.
Were the mice still eating the high fat, high calorie diet after they were given the treatments?
That is unclear. That's a really good question. Can you maintain your lifestyle?
Right. This is I'm all about.
Like we're asking the important questions.
Right.
But this is exactly what you want, though. It's great to find out that, oh yeah, if we change this gene, that gene, the other gene, we can have this tremendous longevity. Oh great, where do I sign up? Oh no, it has to be done before you're born.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so in this way,
to me.
Yeah. Instead of a daily mineral supplement, you just take your daily gene supplement. You're good to go.
Full of viral gene.
How long did it take to show the reversals after the gene therapy?
Had to be quick. Those mice don't live long.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. Like a week.
Well, it was fairly rapid, and it was like I said, with only one treatment sometimes. Wow. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And so does it also? So it increases longevity and health, or longevity through health?
Longevity through health.
Okay.
Right. So it's instead of obesity and diabetes leading to metabolic disease that would then lead to all sorts of complications, leading to an earlier death. It helps to limit the obesity, limits the effects of diabetes, limited the kidney failure, limited or improved heart function. So then you live better, so you can live longer.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah. So the big question now is, these are mice. When are we going to get this in people? Because that would be really amazing. But to see that this is working in mice is a huge step.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Big time.
Yeah. Yep. Much more needed to be researched, but this is a pretty big deal. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Justin, what do you have?
Let's see. What do I have here? Floodwaters, high winds, deep freezing, droughts, hurricanes, fires. These are an assortment of risks that can affect real estate values. If you buy a home near a volcano or one of those recurring risk factors, you may pay much less for your home than somebody who's then buying a home outside of the danger zone. These also happen to be the sort of risks that can increase in some areas due to global warming. So these researchers decided to, this is a study from UBC Sauder School of Business, wanted to go and look and see how global warming was affecting real estate prices. And it turns out it affects it depending on how educated the population is on climate change. So yeah, Florida has a lot of conservative areas and also has a lot of low-lying areas. And the low-lying, flood-prone, hurricane-prone areas, the housing isn't really that different than if it's out of this. So they found between 10 and 12% of homes in Florida and Hawaii could be inundated by being low coastal regions. And according to this, about 2% of U.S. homes are at risk of being underwater by the year 2100. That's quite a large number. But there was a disparity, roughly, they say about 7% more for homes in believer neighborhoods if they're out of the low-lying areas. Deniers would buy those homes for approximately 7% more than those who believed in global warming. So sort of an interesting thing. They found that there wasn't as big of a difference, that 7% swing between whether or not you believe in global warming didn't seem to affect very much in California, where they say the population is more believing in global warming, understanding those results. But it still existed here to some point. Globally, they said it's kind of hard. In Europe, they wouldn't expect. They didn't do it. They only did it here in the States, but they wouldn't expect it to be as big as 7% because global warming is pretty well accepted there. So the risk analysis of a property would be pretty similar across the population. There's a
Ooh, Justin froze.
I was for a second wondering if that was just me.
Yeah,
us too.
So I think something that I'm hearing here is, I mean, this does sound very much like a correlation. We don't know, what actually is causative here. But I think that part of the reason I'm guessing that California is doing better despite these kind of indicators is that a big part of this also is on the statewide requirements for property to have proper adaptation and preparation for the impacts from climate change. And I know that California is really aggressive on that stuff. And so I think that part of that has to do with the governmental regulations on properties.
Although, you know what the first thing I thought of? I thought of the properties that were a large number of the properties that were victims of, say, the Paradise Fire. I was thinking of properties below the Oroville Dam. They're some of the less expensive properties because they are in more flood zone or fire zone. Yeah. They also tend to be very conservative areas. So I don't know if that's quite the connection that I was that's being represented in this. I'm kind of curious to, if you went back and did that.
Lost him again.
He had warned me that his internet was a little flaky today earlier, so it could possibly. Yeah, your internet's being flaky.
I think it's interesting, the economic disparity question too, because if you think about just access to home buying in general and buying property, and then of course the more risky properties are going to be cheaper, and that there's so many layers to this with economic access and economic disparity in our country for home buyers. That's really an interesting study. And again, like correlation, causation, all of that kind of like the science of it aside, there is this
sort of the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So there's this really intense kind of catch-22 and dilemma that climate change communicators have in relation to this, because the people most impacted by climate change are usually the less advantaged, right? But the
Right.
people who feel like they don't have the ability or bandwidth or even mental space to deal with climate change because they have to deal with their day to day are also those same people. And so the way that you can identify that disparity and explain that actually climate change is a big problem for you and it's part of your daily quality of life. So help us, demand that this gets fixed is a big part of the conversation, because right now the environmental movement in general is kind of seen as an effort of the affluent.
Right. Yeah.
And how about we just stop taking advantage of people and don't build in those areas anymore?
Well, yeah,
Just
and
not
the
develop
thing is-
areas that are flood prone.
And the
Not
thing is,
How are
develop.
we going to make money?
in the Florida study, it may not have. I mean, we could be talking about the most expensive homes. We could be talking about a wealthy set of folks who are still willing to pay more for a home that could be at risk because they don't believe in global warming.
Right.
So, and this is my teaser at the beginning. This is Atlantis. Right.
Yeah.
This is Atlantis was probably made up of conservatives before it sank into the ancient seas because they didn't believe the sea was right. Okay. However, if you owned property on Atlantis that sunk, regardless of your politics, you now believe in it. Okay. You now believe the water was rising. This is a different study. This was in the School of Public Policy, OSU College of Liberal Arts. They said people who identify as politically conservative are more likely to support climate change mitigation policies if they report experiencing personal harm from an extreme weather event such as wildfire, flood, or tornado, according to this new study. So we're talking weather events in this scenario, which is also the refutation of global warming because, hey, what a nice cold winter it was, or how much rain, they're not completely correlated, but if that's what's working, it
makes extreme weather more likely.
Yeah, in areas it makes extreme weather more likely. In some areas it makes it less likely. Like California doesn't have enough torrential rains.
Unless you count wildfires as extreme weather, which you do.
Yes,
Right.
there you go.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting about this is, I mean, this was surveys across political ideologies, and they got this sort of hit from it. But it comes down to then what you were talking about of stopping with the facts and finding a way to get that empathy across. Because obviously, if somebody feels personally affected by global warming, they're more interested in creating mitigation, or more interested in mitigation policies. Them not to have been necessarily personally affected by global warming, but get them to have empathy for others who have, and have that associated. So it's there's a signal in there that says that there is a path to getting somebody to change their mind. We just now need to not wish for hurricanes, but maybe if we get to the point where we are saying the wildfire is from global warming, the flooding was worse.
It was worse because of global warming.
Right.
Yeah. Then you get to a point where you can move forward.
If you start connecting.
Yeah. You can start connecting.
If you start connecting weather with global, that might be, the scientists are just a little too good at their jobs sometime and saying, it's weather. It's just, that's one event. Let's not, coin that as global warming. If we stop having that mindset and start going, that storm was global warming. That's what it looks like.
So I think another way to look at this is I think about something that was really successful nationwide that was kind of hard to get going, and that's pushing for the legalization of gay marriage. And what actually helped with that in the end was recognizing, if I am not gay, my friend might be gay, my daughter might be gay, my friend's daughter might be gay. And so there's this recognition that we have all been touched by someone who has been touched by someone who has been touched by this issue. And I think that is what's coming to mind with me here, is that whether it's a crazy frigid winter or wildfires in California or Florida at sinking, right? There's people all over the country that are feeling the effects of climate change, whether they realize that's what it is they are feeling or not. And our job is to make sure to use that lens and recognize that even though everyone is feeling it, if they don't think they're feeling it, they probably know someone who is. Even if it's The Rock who has a home that's in danger of being burned down because I follow The Rock on Twitter or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, you do.
So I think this is an opportunity to remind us that we are this community of people and we all know someone who has been touched by this issue.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but we
it's
need
not
to
a
coin
not
it-
a someone else issue. It's our community
us.
issue.
But
Yeah,
you
it's not
need to
us versus them.
you need to then go reverse and connect weather to global warming. The thing that we've been fighting doing, or I've heard like too much caveat against, start connecting it, because apparently that does affect people's thinking.
Something
Okay.
to think about.
Yeah.
Something to think about, everyone. And while we're pondering that issue, I think it's time for us to move.
Oh, it's my favorite part of the show.
Part of the show. It's about animals and stuff. Oh my gosh, Blair's Animal Corner.
With Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
Yeah, Blair.
I have vampire bats. So vampire bats, you might assume that they want to suck your blood, but actually this study, it discovers that they want to just hang out. So vampire bats, we know that they're social. They live in large groups in the wild. But this recent study from, let's see if I can say it, Museum für Naturkunde, Leibniz Institute for Evolution and Biodiversity Science in Berlin, so a study from Berlin, found that these bats actually can make connections that are pretty long lasting. And the way that they did this was really phenomenal. They actually took bats from the wild and they kind of randomly picked them from these groups. So they didn't pick bats that were next to each other or were showing relationships with one another right away. And they put them into a lab setting, into captivity for a while. And then they released them again later. And when they did that, they watched the relationships in the wild, in captivity, and then again in the wild again. And they were allowed to do this actually by working together with electrical engineers and computer science specialists to develop novel proximity sensors, these teeny tiny sensors. They're lighter than a penny. They use these to capture what they consider the social groups of these entire huge groups of bats and update them every few seconds. They could link what they knew about the bats' relationships in captivity to what they saw in the wild. And from there, they found that shared grooming and food sharing among female bats in captivity over 22 months predicted who they'd interact with in the wild. Not all of the relationships survived, but they found that the bonds made in captivity weren't just a byproduct of confinement and limited options. So at first you're thinking it's like, you know, your prison buddies. Like, we really went through something tough together. You know, we really stuck together and kept in touch after we were on the outside. No, that's not what this was. They were following what was happening in the wild as well, but they really just found that these relationships that were built were lasting. So this is the first time they've really looked at these complex social networks and their resilience outside of primates, as far as we can tell. But I'm not surprised at all to hear this. That,
So
you know,
when there's those,
You're never surprised.
when there's like a million bats going into a cave or whatever, they're actually like buddying up with little cliques of their friends.
oh, hey, Steve, how you been? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, We do know that vampire bats, they have a really interesting social structure with their blood meals. And we've talked before on the show about how the bats will go out and they will forage for their blood meal. And then if a bat doesn't get a meal and comes back to the cave all starving and like, I didn't eat, I'm so hungry, I need a power bar, then other bats nearby may, regurgitate
blood into their mouths.
Power barf.
Power barf.
So sweet.
No,
It's a power up.
it's a bloody bad joke.
You guys are good.
We're bad.
And they remember who they have helped out. And so the bats, if they feel like another bat is taking advantage of them and just freeloading, they will stop giving them that free meal. And
Not
so
anymore,
the
you're cut off.
relationships, these bats do remember the bats they interact with. So this is a really, I'm not surprised they did this study with vampire bats based on that, but this is just interesting on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So this I'm really glad they did it because it kind of opens up the scope of the different types of social animals where this might happen. But it does make sense. Animals remember each other. There are groups of animals where they even remember other individuals of other species. So there's enough social knowledge in any social grouping that it makes sense this would happen. But I do think it's very interesting that it sustains throughout these very different experiences.
Yeah.
So their
cool.
next steps are to work on individual differences in cooperativeness among vampire bats. And they want to explore how individuals go from being strangers to cooperation partners. So how's their meet cute work? How do they move from that into being best friends? How does the social relationship build with vampire bats? So they also want to see these two different kind of buckets and see if they're connected, whether bats that cooperate within their day also go hunting together at night. Are they just friends and they're spending all their time together? Are they like, Denise, I need a break. I'll see you tomorrow.
Denise is just
one thing.
Much.
The one thing I would want to know about this about bats is if they're hanging out with each other in the cave, is it just because they picked a similar location? Like back to the same group, it's because they're all going back to their same
neighborhood, their house, their block.
They tested for. So within the neighborhood, why do you hang out with your buddy who lives across the street and not the person who lives next to you? So that's what they were testing. So they took this random assortment of bats from one cave, but not ones that lived near each other. And they put them in captivity where they were near each other. And they developed relationships during that time. And then they put them back out into the wild, kind of redispersed them, and they found each other again.
Okay. Nice.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So vampire bats, they have very intense relationships. Next, I have a piece of news about elephants and elephant ivory. We talk about endangered animals and endangered animal products all the time, and it can often be kind of a bummer. But what I really like to talk about is what science and technology are doing to help protect and save these species, because there actually are good news stories out there, and there are people working really hard to figure out how to save these animals. So this is from the University of Illinois, and they're looking at a new online tool to be able to track ivory after they confiscate it. So this is a new interactive database online. It looks at geographic and genetic information, and it helps authorities quickly identify where confiscated tusks are coming from. This is looking at African elephants. This database matches genetic sequences from poached ivory to those in a massive database. They have about 1 for every 200 African elephants sequenced in this database. So they have a really rich database to work on. What they found was, looking at mitochondrial DNA, it's the gift that keeps on giving, there is a lot of good information there. Because mitochondrial DNA is passed from females to their offspring, that means that due to that, combined with the fact that elephants are that the herd
Matrilineal.
matrilineal, thank you.
Yep.
And so that means that even though there's one male and a bunch of females, the females stay. The male is the one that has to kick rocks when he gets old. So that means females stick around. So in terms of mitochondrial DNA, that is a really lasting flag. Hey, this elephant came from over here. So all of that together means they can take confiscated ivory. They can look at the mitochondrial DNA in that ivory, which again, the DNA in ivory is dead. Ivory is dead tissue, but the cells are embedded in this bone, and so it's actually still pretty easy to read. You can actually get a result within 6 days after confiscating a piece of ivory, and that gives you a really short turnaround to be able to follow the DNA to the location, see if there's a trend happening with the ivory that's being pulled. They can actually see if there's specific kind of rackets or pathways that poachers are moving through, and that can help them to get to the bottom of what's going on pretty quickly, increase the speed of response to poaching in unexpected areas, and protect specific areas of elephants if they're being targeted.
Right.
So this sounds like a follow-up of something reported on a few years ago, where they had done a bunch of testing on ivory that they had confiscated, and they tracked it. They managed to track it backwards to like a very specific subset of smugglers. Like it was all getting funneled through a sort of bottleneck before. I mean, this is it's tragic, but this is fantastic news that this tool is now being used on a wider scale.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, Africa's really big, and elephants move.
Preach.
You know,
they have such huge home ranges, such incredible home ranges.
So to just try to say, okay, we're going to protect all of the space where elephants live, that's not the most effective, or it's not realistic either. So to be able to really hone in on where exactly we need to put our energy in a given time, in a given season, whatever it may be, can really make a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, elephants.
They're amazing.
They are truly.
The more we can do to protect species.
And a keystone species at that.
Yeah, it's got like 2 or 3 times more neural connections than humans.
I believe it.
Yeah, I wouldn't 100% me. Yeah, I used to work with elephants at the Philadelphia Zoo, and I had sort of like limited. I did more like camels and wallabies, but I had some moments with elephants that just will change your whole.
I think we visited that zoo.
Yeah.
I saw those elephants. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
don't have them anymore. It was like almost 20 years ago now, but I think Philadelphia fought to get rid of the elephants and retire them to that Tennessee elephant place.
Oh, no, I'm thinking the Baltimore.
You're thinking of Baltimore. I was going to say, I went to the Philadelphia Zoo without you guys after you left. When we were
That's right, we left.
Yeah.
But anyway, elephants. We
Let's
can help
save
them
the
with
elephants.
science.
That's right. And with these thoughts, there's this question. We could sit around and we could think these thoughts. We could think about things, all sorts of things. Or we could pick up our devices and do a thing. Or we could sit on the couch and watch something. Apparently, according to a study that was just published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, researchers tested preferences for engaging in solitary activities in 11 countries: Belgium, Brazil, Costa Rica, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Portugal, Serbia, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States. They wanted to know if people in different countries if they had differences in their preference for reading, watching TV, that kind of stuff, or just sitting around and thinking. Turns out, around the world, people would rather do other stuff than think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I'd be surprised, but
Yeah.
2,557 participants, 11 countries, randomly assigned to 2 groups. Half the participants were asked to spend 10 to 15 minutes thinking freely and entertaining themselves with their thoughts as best they could.
How long? 15 minutes?
10 to 15 minutes.
That's pretty long.
Yeah. Researchers requested the other half entertain themselves by watching TV, reading a book or magazine, working on a puzzle, looking at the internet, playing a video game, or listening to music or the radio. They had to do it, either group, by themselves. No
I just
other
picture
people.
the first group like with their face pressed up against the window on the second test group. They get to watch TV.
could you watch the other group right through because is that technically watching something?
Huh.
Right. No. Yeah. They kind of watch the other people. But they were
rough.
asked.
Does
They were asked-
daydreaming count? Like, is
That would be that would be
thinking, right?
that would be thinking. Daydreaming would be entertaining yourself with your thoughts.
Man, I would have crushed that study. Bring it. I'm a
Right?
daydreamer.
I'm like, let me be by myself. I mean,
Yes.
can I stare at the clouds? Or, I mean, I could even
100%.
close my eyes and I'll be
Yeah,
good.
what if you fell asleep? Is that a fail?
Yeah, because it's
automatic
falling asleep failing.
I'd be like, oh, it's quiet in here.
What
Oh,
about
let
just
me
sitting
lay
in your
down.
car in the driveway instead of going into the house?
Oh, yeah.
Which is what
Well, this-
I do all the
This
time.
is exactly why I have the do not unplug order. I don't need any of you. I can if I'm in there at all, even under a massively
It's
reduced capacity.
always resuscitate.
No, yeah,
be in
always
there.
resuscitate, or you know what, just leave me in there. You don't even have to bother with
Plugged
that.
in.
Just don't unplug. I'm fine. I never needed any of you to begin with. It was nice talking to all of you. It was great interacting, but I was good before I knew any of you. I'll be fine after.
Thanks, Justin. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so anyway, they looked at the levels of enjoyment and boredom that they experienced during the experiment and to get the preferences. And so, yeah, other distracting
You just need to
activities
download
make
the
people
material
happy.
in advance. You just need to
That's right.
download the content in advance,
Yeah.
whether it's through books or attending classes. If you have enough content in there between your ears, you don't need another source. I mean, you'll be curious. You'll want other sources. But you can go a really long time with the content you already have downloaded.
Or
Oh,
there's
you
the
have so
exact
much
opposite
downloaded.
of that, which is meditation.
Right.
Just trying to empty your brain.
I'm
You
not
could
good
do
at that.
either.
I am
Yeah.
not good at that. That's the one that is. Oh yeah, the thing that happens is the self-aware consciousness takes over, and it's I'm thinking about nothing. Well, not nothing. I'm thinking about this. Thinking about nothing. Well, no, it's not. Okay, so now is this nothing? No, you're still talking. Okay, this is what I have like this train of thought dialogue that takes over and disembodies itself and just rambles senselessly the entire time I'm trying to meditate.
Listening to this, I can believe it.
I'm never gonna meditate again after listening to that. I'm like,
Is this a thing? I can't believe there's just like whole places where people go and do this all day. The pillow was nice.
But
The pillow was nice. I'm glad I'm not on the floor, but
So for those of us who enjoy our time in our brains, in our heads to ourselves, eventually we could be watched by the computers. Researchers from the Russian corporation Neurobotics and the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology using EEG, so signals collected from outside of the brain, outside of the skull, not involving implants, not involving opening the brain up for any purpose, but from electrical waves recorded from outside of the skull, have been able to visualize a person's brain activity as actual images. And now these images do
That's
look...
bad.
The images are taken mostly of visual images because how else would you visualize? What else would you visualize for visualization? And the images themselves seem to be impressionist. They're fuzzy, but they have a very striking resemblance to the images that that test subjects had been viewing.
What?
This is
Yes.
bad.
No, this is not real. This is real? Like this is
This is real, and this is like an
Oh,
EEG
my
cap that was placed on the participants' heads. Your thoughts will never be your own again. So while you are enjoying your thoughts, other people may entertain themselves while watching yours.
So there's that, the sci-fi angle, but there's also the angle of Justin, who's a vegetable who doesn't want to be unplugged.
Exactly.
We can actually communicate with him then.
No,
and see
leave me
what he's
alone.
thinking
You
about.
finally got some peace and quiet.
GooTube.
But okay, so this is real time, and these pictures
Brain
here
tube.
are visual stimulus that's
Yes.
being sort of captured.
Yes.
It's not I think it would be much more interesting if you had somebody who was attempting to visualize something and then could
Right.
capture an image. I'm wondering if have they tried this? Did that
They
work?
haven't.
Right.
They haven't published that yet, so
Or is it
I
because
do
that
not know
doesn't
if they
work?
have.
Because I think that's the first thing I would try, and
So
if it worked.
So the way that this worked with their brain-computer interface algorithm, they have the EEGs, so you have the brain waves from the outside of the head that are collected. Those brain waves, then there's an algorithm that's able to recognize waves for certain features or for get rid of noise and actually start creating an image. And if you have an image, oh no, I will take that back. I will take this back. In the second phase of the experiment, yeah, here we go. Yes, the to visualize brain activity, they were shown previously unseen videos as they watched the EEGs were recorded, fed to the neural networks. The system passed the test, blah, blah, blah. And yes, then they did move on to visualizing, not viewing. Yeah.
Did that
so they
work? Did they get
Yes.
images from this?
Yes.
The small business owner in me sees an opportunity for almost like RFID blocking wallets for like some kind of helmet where I can block other people trying to read my brain and still think about it's stylish.
your stuff.
And just like, because it's the only thing, sometimes I think this, sometimes I think, well, at least with all the privacy stuff and everything, at least I have my own brain. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
So with a picture of a person or something that you have in your head, those can be very specific. If you're walking up to an ATM machine and you're having to think of a password, for instance, then is that just visually written out, the password? Does it come through?
Depends if you've memorized it as a visual cue or as something else.
Or a movement
Mine's a
cue.
pattern, right? But also,
Right.
if you think of the way text works in your mind, it's not as it's a much more fluid thing than a face of a person or something
Right.
like this.
I don't know
Just
though.
trying to-
Some people think very visually. I have a banner
Yes,
that unrolls in my brain that says in bold letters "hungry" when I am hungry. I don't feel a hunger
Oh.
pain. I see it in my brain as a
Wow.
word.
And then people who have that picture perfect memory.
Yeah.
Is it really photographic? I mean, can we just see it all now?
Could you take somebody through your mind castle?
Like offer tours. I'm a small business owner, so
We're all
I'm
going
always
this
like,
way. No.
like,
That's the
economics
dungeon.
of
Come this way.
Say that
Come
in the
down the
dungeon.
hall.
We're all
Yeah,
going
don't
this
go to
way.
the dungeon.
The West
Yeah.
Wing is off limits. If we could just come this way. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And yes, so far it's visual. This is from the visual system. This is a system that we understand very well. We have previous experiments that have worked out this. We've done these experiments in cats where we've put electrodes in the cat's brains, had the cats watch TV, and then been able to project an image of what was in the cat's visual cortex onto a screen that looks just like the screen that they're looking at. This is one step removed. There's no implant directly into the brain. It's external. And we're talking about people now and people thinking visually, movements and words and sounds, that's going to be another layer of complexity yet. But it's a big step forward. So this is the next way that the Russians are going to get into our lives. Oh my God. We can all run away though, or maybe we can just dream of being Voyager 2 though. Voyager 2 went into interstellar space 1 year ago, almost today on November 5th, 2018. And 5 papers were just published in Nature Astronomy, I believe is the where the publications came out. 5 papers talking about its experience and what they found from the various instruments. A lot of it matches with Voyager 1 leaving the heliosphere, leaving the influence of our sun behind and entering interstellar space. There were a couple of things that were a little bit different. It seems that as opposed to Voyager 1, when it left the heliosphere, there were no solar particles leaking out. But for Voyager 2, it's still measuring the leakage. It's measuring solar particles that are coming out. So different parts of the heliopause, which is that barrier, that imaginary barrier between interstellar space and the heliosphere, it's a little leaky on the sides, off the dead center. Voyager 1 kind of went out the front door, and Voyager 2, it took a side window. We have to send more things out into space, but this is the second craft to have left our solar system, and it is still going, and it's telling us more and more and more about our universe. Isn't it cool? Yeah.
Thanks, Voyager 2.
And we're
Happy
still
birthday.
talking. That's right. I love that we're still talking to these craft that have been out there for decades. They're still sending information back.
Crazy.
It's brilliant. Engineers
I know, yeah.
are fantastic. This is good. All right, those are my last stories. Hey, Justin, what you got?
Oh, I'm good. I've got.
You're good?
I got through mine. Yeah.
You got through yours, Blair. Do you have a last story?
I have one last story about killer sharks.
Ah!
They're killing bacteria, though, so that's good.
Oh.
Okay.
This is a study from King Abdullah University in Saudi Arabia, and they just found these black tip reef sharks that often have wounds on them, but they just never see them looking sick or infected. So they actually tested the microbial community living on the skin of sharks, on the skin of sharks that were not wounded, on the skin of sharks that were wounded, and near the actual wounds and in the wounds themselves. And they found that by sequencing RNA from these samples, that there was no difference in the bacterial communities on injured skin, on gills, and uninjured skin or gills. So there's no evidence of infection in or around these wounds. Shark skin does not become infected easily, and the native bacterial community can be maintained even after injury. So I do just want to mention quickly that there is something mechanically about shark skin that makes it hard for bacteria to land on it, because they have these little dermal denticles, which basically just means skin teeth.
They have skin teeth.
Yeah, they're just sandpapery, and it's really hard for bigger bacteria like E. coli and stuff like that, to gain purchase, to be able to stick on these guys, which is why they talk about making like shark skin cutting boards and stuff like that, because it has.
They do?
Who talks about this?
Not out of real shark skin, but out of
Fishermen, I'm sure.
artificially created shark skin, right? Just bumpy materials that are similar because they have these natural antibacterial properties. But so that probably is something about this. But if that was the only thing, then you would see infection inside open wounds.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's not there means something's going on. There's a strong hypothesis from this group thinking that it has to do with the microbes that are naturally occurring there, that actually it's the microbial community that is killing off non-native bacteria, but there's no research done on that yet. That's just a theory, because there is this strong microbial community that persists. So very cool stuff that sharks are doing to continue to be amazing and long-lived. If we could just stop killing them, that would be great.
Fingers are crossed.
I'm talking about a misunderstood animal, bug.
I know.
Oh,
We
yes.
always talk about sharks. So
Ugh.
misunderstood.
Well,
Shark.
sharks fly around in the air in tornadoes and they eat people with chainsaws.
And then real quick to tag onto your story,
No.
a surface like a plastic surface cutting board versus a wood cutting board. They found that wood is actually better at preventing microbial growth because they get absorbed. And then if it was aerobic and that's an anaerobic environment, it's just not as effective. Whereas plastic, even if it's not going to get absorbed into the material, being on the surface is a happier place for the bacteria.
That's interesting.
Unless perhaps it was made out of dermal denticles. TBD.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to test that someday, I guess.
We could try it, but I'm just imagining sandpaper cutting board. You're going to have some dull knives pretty fast.
That's true, but also
Only cut in one direction.
your kind of squeaky and slippery food items that you cut wouldn't slip around.
This is true.
No, naturally
Cost benefit.
grabbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cost benefit. But yeah, I'll have what the sharks are having.
Owner, would you want to get in on this with me or what?
You can you can pitch that one to the Shark Tank yourself.
All right.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
It already has happened before.
Shark Tank. We're swimming in it. We love that you're in it with us. We have come to the end of our show. I want to send some shout outs out there to people who deserve them. Thank you to Fada for helping with show notes and social media. Thank you to Gord McLeod for managing our chat room. Thank you to Identity4 for recording the show. Thank you to the Bug Chicks for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. We really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
This is super fun. Y'all are great at what you do.
Oh, thank you. You are too, and wish you the best in getting a show, making your own show, but
Thanks.
also educating and helping a lot of people through insects. And once again, what's your website?
Thebugchicks.com.
There we go. And you can also follow them on Twitter. And I need to say thank you now to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Paul Disney, Ed Dyer, Andrew Swanson, Craig Landon, Andy Groh, Ed Stu Pollock, Philip Shane, Ken Hayes, Harrison Prather, Charlene Henry, Joshua Fury, Steve DeBell, Alex Wilson, Tony Steele, Richard Porter, Mark Massaros, Jack, Matthew Litwin, Jason Roberts, Bill K, Bob Calder, Eric Knapp, Richard, Brian Condren, Dave Neighbor, Howard Tan, Gome K, Donald Mundis, Sarah Forfar, Dan K, Matt Bass, Darwin Hannon, Patrick Pecoraro, Ben Bignall, Jean Tellier, John Gridley, Corinne Benton, Adam LaJoy, Sarah Chavis, Rodney Lewis, Tiffany Boyd, John Bertram, Mountain Sloth, Seth O'Gradney, Stephen Alberon, John Ratnaswamy, Dave Friedel, Daryl Myshak, Paul Ronovich, Sue Oster, Dave Wilkinson, Noodles, Kevin Reardon, Christoph Zucknarek, Ashish Pants, Ulysses Adkins, Artyom, Rick Ramus, Paul, John McKee, Jason Olds, Brian Carrington, Christopher Dreyer, Lisa Suzuki, Jim Drapeau, Greg Riley, Sean Lamb, Steve Leisman, Kurt Larson, Rudy Garcia, Marjorie, Gary S., Robert, Greg Briggs, Brendan Minish, Christopher Rappin, Flying Out, Aaron Luthen, Matt Sutter, Mac Hessenflow, Gavin Parachan, Byron Lee, and E.O. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon.
That list keeps growing. I love it.
It's amazing.
I love it too. I love reading it. It's my challenge to not mess up on names.
And you've got a little micro machines rhythm to it now.
Yeah, I was super impressed.
Very impressive.
If you are interested in supporting us, you can find information at TWIS.org or patreon.com/thisweekinscience. On next week's show, we will be joined by Dr. Steve Scott from Cray Inc. He's going to join us to discuss exoscale computing. That's big computing, in case you didn't know. That's supercomputers next week. And we will be broadcasting live online, 8 p.m. Pacific time on twis.org/live. You can watch and join our chat room. You can also do that at YouTube. You can find our past episodes at YouTube or at twis.org as well.
I kind of really hope that Dr. Steve Scott has a lot of tattoos being from Cray Inc. And that they are just totally out there tattoos. Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory or wherever podcasts are found. And if you enjoyed the show, remember to tell your friends about TWIS. And if you didn't enjoy the show, you probably have a friend who would like it more than you did. So tell them about TWIS.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org. While you're there, be sure to make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners if you like. And while you're there, you can pre-order the 2020 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar with both a dung beetle and a Hercules beetle inside. Since we were talking about
people get
bugs
beetles
tonight.
this year. Awesome.
2
You can
different
also
beetles.
hit us up directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line. Otherwise, what will happen?
Your email will be spam filtered into oblivion.
Whoa.
You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there is a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views. But I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address. From stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought. And I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
Well, that was fun.
Yes, it was.
Now we're in the after show. which is the part that we're just done with the show and we're after the show.
After the show, there's more show.
There's more show. It's not really a show, but we're still here.
Love it.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
You thought you were done. It's like,
Great.
super fun.
Gearing up for another 3 hours.
That's right. We're
Now
on
the
there
party
all
starts.
night. I don't think I could do another 3 hours. I mean, I don't know.
teaching tomorrow.
You're teaching tomorrow?
You're in
She
San
San Francisco. She's in San Francisco. Yeah. Where are you teaching? At the zoo?
Yeah.
What do you-
So
yeah.
we have actually this really cool thing going on right now where the Stockton School District is busing out 20 schools to the zoo over the next 3 months to visit the zoo, walk around for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then get a 45-minute, hour-long assembly program with me. And then they go back to Stockton.
Cool.
So, so I'm doing all of those because I have interns that teach our normal Zoomobile programs where we bring animals into classrooms. But those are for 35 students or less. They're facilitating touching. It's very
Right.
informal. So they don't really have microphone experience or like want to talk in front of 100 different people all at once. And so I have them doing the handling and I'm talking into a mic. And so it's a little bit different. We're trying something brand new to try to reach these kids who they're way out of our radius for bringing animals to them.
Right.
Yeah.
But the school district was really, I was like, you could go to Oakland Zoo, you could go to Sac Zoo, like there are zoos closer to you. They said, no, we want to take them to San Francisco. Most of these kids have never been to San Francisco. We want them to see the ocean. Like we want to take them to this different area outside of their normal sphere. So it's a pretty neat thing.
That's incredible to bus. I mean, that's a huge logistical, that's a big deal. Do you like doing big assembly programs like that?
It depends.
What age grade? What age grade?
So most of these kids are in third grade. We have a couple seconds, a couple fourths.
Okay.
Most of them are third grade.
Third grade.
They're younger.
The assembly programs are good for like impact numbers, of course, but I much prefer kind of the stuff that you were talking about before. You get to understand the group you're with so much better if they're smaller groups. You get to hear from more of the kids. Today I had 60 something kids in the classroom in our big hall. And so I was only hearing from the 4 kids that raised their hands the most.
Right.
Because I had to get through. There was so much going on. We had to walk around with the animals so that all 60 kids could see them. So just you have to kind of take the easiest route to get through everything.
Yeah.
So
you can't give the attention that you'd like.
I appreciate the impact, but I would much rather take the moment to like derail my program for 5 minutes while I talk through with a student why they don't want to touch the snake and get them to touch the snake and watch their body kind of relax and then go back for a second touch, right? And I can't do that if I'm dealing with 100 kids at once. So.
Sure. Yeah, we do some assembly programs. I love them in a different way, but I also have that theater background. So there is something about having 100, 150 to 300 kids in a room and being able to like read them as one organism and kind of bring the level right down and then bring it way up and then kind of almost like controlling an orchestra is how I think of teaching that many kids at a time. There's a fun challenge in it, but I do love that one-on-one stuff. Yeah. That's a toss-up.
Well, I mean the ham in me,
Right. Totally.
Hand me a microphone. I can.
Oh my God! Give me a microphone, and I'm like a lounge singer. It's a nightmare. It's a problem. Yeah, totally.
The same thing happens when you put on a mustache.
The same thing happens when I put on a mustache.
Oh, very
Were both of you like when you were young, like elementary school age? Were you hand me a microphone, total hams, or were you quiet and unassuming, or somewhere in between?
I was not allowed to be quiet and unassuming.
Well, I wasn't necessarily a hand me a mic, but I also was loud. But that was mostly just because I couldn't figure out how to moderate myself.
That comes with experience.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I grew up on stage, so and I also think like making people laugh when I was young and kind of breaking tension just in my own family became a thing that I did. And so it was more like a survival skill or like a I look at it as a skill. I look at performance and all of that as a hard skill that is really helpful, I think, to be able to flip it on and flip it back off if I don't need it.
As Justin comes sliding in.
I think it's very interesting that I'm sure there was a time in my life when I used to get stage fright, but I don't remember it. And there are people who say, like who've been performing forever who say, I still get butterflies, I still get nervous, I still feel nauseous right before I go on a stage. And I'm not trying to brag, but it is something that I don't remember ever experiencing.
Right. I get amped, and if I don't have a little bit of nervous energy, I feel like I'm not going to be able to ratchet it that just extra bit, because I love improvisation. And poor Jessica wants to know exactly what's being said, and so good Lord, you are the most patient because I'm like, I think we're gonna change. I'm gonna flip this around. I think,
instead of talking about this,
because it keeps it fresh and it keeps me focused and motivated to do something new. I don't know.
And it keeps my nervous energy up so that I don't deadpan because I'm a deadpanner.
Yeah. I would get nervous
good,
over some talks, though. There are some talks I give where I get nervous. But if it's something new, or if it's something, like if I ever get to give a TED talk, I think I would be throwing up backstage.
I'd be nervous
something
if
like
I had
that,
to do that,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's like when there's pressure involved, it's always a little bit different. But just, there's the whole, like, just public speaking is one of the biggest, most unanimous fears that people have. And I feel very privileged that has not been my experience.
Yeah, me too. And I think practice for that and doing it really helps. Yeah.
Yeah. I did a group. I did one of these Stockton groups a couple weeks ago, and the worst possible thing happened, which didn't bother me at all, which is I think it was partially the chaperone's fault. But after I talked with these kids for an hour, introduced them to some live animals, a crow flew around the room for them. I said, thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your time at the zoo. Hope to see you around. It was just silent.
Oh, that's the worst possible thing.
I was like a kid got nailed by a snake.
I was like, what is it? What's happening?
No, just it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Like there was no thank you, there was no clapping, there was no nothing. And I know it wasn't the kid's fault. I thought it was kind of funny. But
yeah.
but I think it was because the chaperone was just kind of like, all right, well, let's go. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Because sometimes that quiet is like that special awe moment, the moment of reverence. But then sometimes, you're like, hello, is anybody home? What's going on? Yeah, totally.
It was very funny.
Totally.
I was wondering if you were gonna say that, like, after an hour of doing this, that the chaperone was gonna say something like, oh, none of them speak English, or
right. I was like,
what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
this is a language immersion course. Thank you for talking.
I go to English language learner classes all the time, and I'm like, what? If you pick a few words in, great. Yeah. Otherwise, you just get to see some animals and hear some English. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I like in those situations to learn their words for the animals. I love that. So then you're getting some sort of cross-cultural, and you're getting, you become the learner, and like everybody's the learner in that situation. That's really fun. Super fun. Oh, you have a cool job. I like your job.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of similarities. It's very interesting. I mean, one of our 3 rules is to be brave.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it's I try to get the kids to kind of talk differently about things, you know, and one of the things is with being brave. I always ask kids, what do you think that means? And they always say to not be scared.
Oh,
right?
it's the opposite of
And
that.
I'm like, okay, but turn
Let's
that
go
into what you
positive.
should do. What
Right.
should you do?
And
it's
also
really
bravery
hard
is
for them.
action in the face of fear. You cannot be brave without fear. You have fear is a part of it. Fear is a building block in that bravery. Yeah, absolutely. Oh
Like,
my
you're
gosh.
allowed to be scared, but it's about trust. It's about trying.
Yes.
It's about,
Perfect. Yes.
you know, all this other stuff that is what you should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's
I
very,
love that. Maneuver him around.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
bravely
feel like-
stayed within my routine today. Yeah.
Bravely,
Don't
bravely. I feel. Oh, there comes the dog.
Oh, okay.
Hey, doggos. Oh
Okay.
my gosh,
That was your, sorry.
you're
Oh,
sleepy.
He's very sleepy.
Yeah.
He just wants to be on the couch touching whoever is on the couch.
Oh.
He's
This
just
is
like,
Mackerel. He looks like a little fisherman's dog, which is why we named him Mackerel.
He's so
I know, dude. I
cute.
can't
He's
do
a
a thing
cutie.
about it. I can't do a thing
He's a
about it.
cutie. Yeah, I'm in love. I'm in love.
But if you want to get on my lap because I'm your favorite, that's okay too.
I heard some noises from outside of my studio area, things being knocked over, and I'm wondering what my cats are getting up to.
Right.
Oh, no.
Like, what trouble? Someone in the chat room, Ed says, you have the RCA dog.
He looks like the RCA dog, but a little scruffier, like just a little scruffier. Yeah, he's the sweetest. He's the sweetest.
Yeah. Oh, I was wondering how someone else is bringing up Windows 10.
Oh,
Yes.
That you were part of their
We-
small business ad campaign for a while. How was that experience?
We launched that ad.
Yeah,
We
it
were
was
the-
interesting.
We were the launch of that ad campaign. It was awesome. They were really lovely to us, first of all. So thank you, Windows.
Thank you,
Windows
Microsoft.
and Microsoft, for being lovely to us. It's funny because we're a dual platform business. So like we're on a Mac right now. We both have iPhones, but then we also have these Surface Books that they gave us, and Jessica's always worked on a PC. And so, so they were cool with that. We got hate mail.
Huh?
Like
We got
For what?
hate mail.
exactly.
Actually, the very first bit of feedback that we got was somebody calling Kristie's cell phone at like 11 at night or something like that, just freaking out because it was
We
a
had
commercial for
sold
Microsoft
out.
instead of like Apple.
Or some we had sold out.
And they were like, we will never bring our kids to come
Some
see
woman
you
here
again.
in Portland, I brought
Like-
my children to see you at every
Yeah.
library event. I can't believe that you would have sold out like this. And I was like, oh, thank you for your phone
Okay.
call. Have a
Wait,
good night.
So can I just point out something?
Apple versus Windows?
Apple is a monster giant corporation that utilizes child labor to make their products. Like, stop.
I mean, it was like
stop.
it was a whole deal. And we can get into Apple versus Windows. We use both of them. We love both of them. And also at the end of the day, it's like, it's a computer. Like, it's okay. And
Yeah,
we're-
but isn't that-
so
but that's
one of
the brand
things-
identity thing. The
Yeah.
Apple people feel like by having purchased that brand of
I don't
computer,
know that she
have-
was about the Apple thing. I think she was personally about like privacy for micro. I don't know what it was. But then we got other hate mail. We got a lot of love mail. I will say this. We got a lot of love mail from people who were like, yay, female entomologist and bug people. You know, people really loved it. But then we did get some hate mail. So Jessica pronounces proboscis proboscis. Because
Yeah, proboscis.
Yeah.
I say proboscis.
Proboscis.
right. And
I say
so-
proboscis. You say proboscis. No.
There it is. And so we got a lot. So I just started taking pictures of the Oxford English Dictionary of the two pronunciations and just sending it to people. And then we did get one piece of mail. I just decided I was feeling very overwhelmed by all this because I stress that people don't like us. Like that really gets to me, and I just have to get over it. But we
Yeah.
got this message from this woman. She went to our website, found our form, sent us an email to say, in your commercial, how dare you speak for my children? You said all kids love bugs and my kids don't love bugs. And I sat on this email for a solid week and I wrote her back and I said, thank you so much for sending this. I do want to say we've taught like over 120,000 students in the last 6 or 7 years. And it's our experience that kids do really like bugs, and we are here to turn fear to fascination through learning about things. And if your children are like, sometimes it's learned behavior, but thank you so much for writing to us, and we would be glad to answer any questions that your kids have about bugs. And then she wrote us back and she was like, oh, I didn't realize that I would be talking to a real person. Thank you so much for this. My kids have a question about ladybugs. And I was like,
What? You didn't think you'd be talking to a real person?
people thought
People
that
thought we were
actors.
which I personally find incredibly flattering because I am really bad at acting. And so
People thought
But
all
you make
sorts of,
apparently a convincing entomologist.
well, thank you.
There you go.
you know,
I've
yeah.
been studying that role for a while.
that was fun. It was really fun, and it actually helped us a lot. That was the year that Jessica went and got a full-time job elsewhere, and I was trying to like move the barge of the bug chicks in a new direction and just try to set us up for something that was going to be have more longevity, because we want to be the bug chicks until we're 99 and then we peace out, you know, like that's our goal. But we're a small business, and lots of people think we're a nonprofit, and maybe we should have gone that route. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, this is what we do, and this is our work and our life, and we have student loans and all sorts of stuff. But so it was a big help to us. Yeah,
That's
we
great.
enjoyed it.
And it was a
Okay.
good set of people that we worked
Oh
with.
yeah,
too.
they were great. They were real.
They
great.
were amazing.
I think those kinds of experiences, they can be absolutely wonderful. And
Yeah, it was cool.
yeah, I'm glad that it worked out.
It felt validating.
I'm just so, I guess, you know, the brand identity stuff, I'm just so surprised at how vehement some people are that they have to send you an email about that kind of stuff.
There are articles written about us on
Like
Business Insider,
And like in
about
Apple magazine.
I mean, about this Mac versus PC, like this whole, and we were just like, oh, well, we use Macs and we use PC and we use
It's like, look at this cool
PowerPoint.
thing that
We were
this
just
computer can do.
This one does this cool thing. This one does another
You
cool
know,
thing.
Watch me draw a proboscis.
Right, like to us, we were just like, yay, computers, yay, someone wants to talk about the work that we do, you know? But people just get really intense.
People are intense. People are very intense. Yes. Speaking of people, calendars. I'm gonna Blair. Blair's not there anymore.
Blair's not here.
Blair went away. Okay.
Blair's gone.
I need to do my confirmation on the calendars. But then we're almost ready on our calendars. It's very exciting.
We should get a calendar for the office. We should.
You
And
could
we
get a
shall.
TWIS calendar.
We're gonna get a
We'll
twist
totally
calendar
get
for the
one.
office. We need one.
It would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Done and done.
How do you like Patreon? You love Patreon.
I do. Yeah. I do enjoy Patreon. I think for us it's been really great. It's nice to be, because it's like a platform where we can talk with our patrons and it's like I don't know, Kickstarter or something, but it's nicer because it's this ongoing thing.
Right. It's a little club.
And it builds like, it's like a subscription or a club or yeah.
Yeah, I think now that we're done with our curriculum, we'll probably move in that direction.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
a
like-
micro version of public broadcasting.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah,
That's lovely.
it's we have contributing members that make the show happen.
Right. Love
And
that.
it becomes it's really is their show, and I love that Kiki started.
There are
doing
producers.
There are producers. I love that Kiki started with the reading out the names. It used to be a much shorter list.
I know. I'm like, I've got so many names. This is great. So good.
Yeah. And it's and those names that you recognize, and then you see these people in the chat room, and then we'll go to some random city where we've never been before, and there's faces. There's human beings behind these names that they're read across the thing that we get to meet and interact with. So.
Yeah, we did we
become a
did our
community.
show here in Portland at the Alberta Rose, And it was really cool when I was reading the names at the end. Like people had been having it's a Science on Tap event, so people
Right.
had been having a couple of beers, and so people are like, woohoo! They'd like yell when their name was read, and like there were people
I
like,
would totally be that person. I love that.
standing up and being like, yeah. And so that was just really fun because it also became a little bit more interactive then.
Right.
Yeah. Flying Out in the chat room says, not all of us have faces.
Oh no! I'm sorry. I didn't mean for the facially disadvantaged. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disclose.
Ed from Connecticut, Ed from CT saying, is there any downside to Patreon? And I think my personal downside is that I am really bad at using the mail. And that's something writing thank you notes and putting together envelopes with patches and mailing things to people. That's my, like, the actual sending of things to people. It doesn't happen on as regular a basis as I would like because that's my issue and glitch.
That doesn't sound like Patreon.
It's not a problem with Patreon. It was I decided to give these rewards when I really should have done some inner soul searching about what I wanted to do.
Absolutely. We did an Indiegogo years ago, and we did a sofa safari. We did a little web series where we brought a couch across the country, and people sponsored this trip. And we got back, and for one reason or another, our lives imploded when we came back.
Yeah.
And then
For many reasons.
we had to send out the mailing of things is really an intense. It's just intense.
More intense than one would expect.
Yeah. You think, I'll just mail some things. And then you're like, oh my God.
It's because we're spoiled by the digital age.
No.
We're just like,
You're about to receive some calendars.
I will be receiving some calendars to be mailing to people very soon. I'll get on my annual, I have to go mail calendars binge. It's going to be amazing.
Hire a local university student to help you just for
high school
pizza
student.
and beer. Oh, I was thinking university, so you could give him beer, pay him.
The high school student will definitely work hard for pizza and beer.
But
yeah,
there's an issue there.
Yeah, you might get in a little trouble.
Do that. Yeah. I don't know. I have an 8-year-old. I can have him stuff envelopes. We'll make a little bit of child labor there.
pizza and beer. Make it worth it.
Make it worth it. Here, Kai.
Here's an IPA and some pizza. Let's do this.
The pizza's organic. It is.
And there's CBD oil on both.
Right.
Yes, that's right. There's CBD oil on everything these days. Somebody recently posted a pillow that you can order from what's one of those big Brookstone. Brookstone. Yes, that's the one. Thank you. A pillow you can order that is got CBD oil embedded in it. So you go to sleep on a pillow of.
Do you wake up with oil stains
all over
on your face?
Yeah.
Like one side of your hair is like super oily and you've got like breakouts and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
or
probably
more. My question is, do you wake up?
Yeah, that's valid.
Does your alarm work?
I want to start seeing some really good science around the CBD.
There is a tremendous amount of preliminary studies. One of the ones I find really intriguing is it's been correlatively linked to reconnecting and reducing inflammation and actually inducing reconnection of neural matter. So might have a huge role to play in stuff like I'm thinking of the National Football League, people who have been
traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a decent protocol to be used immediately after somebody's gotten a concussion. There's everything from, this is, we have these, the reason we have CB, we have cannabinoid receptors in our brain.
Right.
There is a role for this molecule to play in human race. What also is going to be interesting now is that there are yeast that are producing CBD. And so in this, they can also produce and start selecting for a lot of the different compounds that are not CBD or THC, but there's a whole list of smaller molecule compounds that don't get expressed as cannabinoid related, that don't get expressed as much through the plant, that we can actually start producing and seeing what benefits or what effects these things might have. So this is going. We're finally in a position where these studies can be done, and there is a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. We just get lots of phone calls from pot farmers about what's this bug on my plant. That's what we.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
what
Well, those are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good calls.
I believe
Yeah.
that's a weed beetle.
I donated a microscope I had to a weed farmer.
Oh, nice.
So that they could, because they were looking for mites and different things.
Yeah. We're sponsored by Celestron.
I thought you were going to say something.
Not by
I
weed.
was like,
No,
we are?
we're sponsored by Celestron, and so we use their digital microscopes all the time. And yeah, sometimes people send us stuff, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll look at this with my microscope.
Look at it with my microscope.
Yeah, totally.
So at the California Academy of Sciences right now, there's their traveling exhibit is all about skin, and so they have a whole section about facial mites, which is
Awesome.
so interesting.
Totally.
Yes.
We've
That's
talked about them
cool.
on the show a bunch, but they have a couple that you can look at through a microscope, and they have a fun like animation about how
Love it.
face mites work. And
Yeah.
Face mites.
I blew some kindergartners' minds today. I made everybody touch their eyebrows, and I talked about mites, and they were just like, because they'd done a big. The teacher was like, "Can you make it spider heavy?" And I was like, "Well, I hear spider, and I'm going to go arachnid heavy." And so, like, I was telling them about the mites, and the teacher is sitting in the back, like,
what?
and the kids are like,
So I will absolutely admit, I will absolutely admit, there's not very much that I don't want to know, and I'm not going to be curious to hear and learn about. That was one that really did challenge my desire to know things. That one, and I know like nothing's changed. There's nothing's changed. I don't feel there's nothing.
They were there
I'm like,
before, during, and after.
Yeah.
the
But that's the one I'm like,
Well,
yeah,
if you think,
if that wasn't a thing, I could have been fine my whole life.
I just feel like now I've got like little friends that come with me everywhere.
and if you think the ones in your eyebrows are intense, just what do you think about the ones in your eyelashes?
Yeah, so that's the one where I
In
went
your
around telling
pores.
people when I was in college that, oh, well, that's why you have to remove your makeup every day because your makeup tastes really good. And that's why your eyelashes are shorter if you don't wash your eye makeup off every day.
Is this true?
Yes, the
What?
facial mites eat your eyelashes
Okay.
more.
Time to
Because
wash
when
off
you
your
do
mascara.
Yes. So
I'm
I
so
am
bad
like
at that.
very, very religious about washing my face at the end of my day because of this. Because they have enough to eat. They don't need to also eat my eyelashes and make them short and stubby.
Yeah,
That's super interesting because I don't wash my face at night.
But you
I used-
rarely wear.
Does
stuff
it matter
anymore.
if you wear makeup or not?
Yeah, so I think it's the mascara because I think it catches like skin particles and dust particles and things like that.
Okay. All right. Well,
So
then
they can nibble off the tippies.
Oh, interesting.
Cool.
cool.
Kiki, are you fact checking me right now?
I'm trying to.
You
know
we've
it.
been doing this long enough.
Yeah, I was like, I know that
This is
Which also,
Kiki's.
you know,
This is Kiki's. I'm not sure
That
that,
was like-
this is.
12 years ago, so that might have been debunked by now, who knows, but that was my understanding. Was that
Now it's
facial
only
mites-
waterproof mascara.
Yeah, that they like the mascara, but yeah, I think it's very interesting. The kind of like, do you want to know or would you rather stay kind of in ignorance? I had a real issue with spiders growing up, like to the point where if there was a spider in my bedroom and it did not get removed and it like crawled into a crevice or something and was out of sight, I couldn't sleep there.
Sure.
for like days. Like I was so I would cover my ears with the blanket every single night because I didn't want spiders to crawl into my ears. Like I was so terrified of spiders. And eventually my mom kind of sat me down, got all these books from the library, wanted to look at, stories about spiders that were just children's books, look at scientific books with pictures of what they look like up close. And none of that really worked for me until I found somebody, maybe it was her, I think it was in one of these books. It said that whole thing, whether it's true or not, you're never more than 3 feet away from a spider, right?
Right.
And this completely changed the way I thought about spiders. You would think that would be a thing like, oh my God, they're everywhere, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. But even in my small brain as like an 8-year-old, I was like, oh, they're everywhere. I just don't see them. I have to figure out how to make peace with this.
I have to kind of manage this, right?
Yeah. So the spider that comes out of the wall that I see and they go back in the wall, they're not the only one in the wall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the reason to wash your makeup off your eyelashes is not that they're eating your eyelashes.
Okay, great.
They're not eating your eyelashes. They live there. They like eating grease and dead skin cells and stuff like that. And they might crawl off of your eyelashes and crawl around your face, maybe mate on your face and then crawl back and live on your eyelashes again.
Oh my.
But the reason you want to wash your face and your eyelashes is that they can build up and you could have an eyelash you might have an infestation that can cause eye problems.
Okay.
They can cause eye infections. And
okay, I you look troubled. I used to want a bot fly, but now I want a mite infestation.
So
you might regret that.
This is from the very scientific resource called Dry Eye Diva. But this article says
Blair.
I know. This article
No.
I'm just saying it's out there. This is where, there's information out there that's saying that the bugs live in your oil glands and hair follicles. Great. That's all still accurate. So the makeup routine, this says the makeup routine incentivizes mites because they dine on oil, dead skin cells, etc. So they're saying the oils in your mascara and eyeliner are a menu item.
Oh.
A menu item.
Yeah.
Is it the dessert menu or like?
Yes, dessert.
Yeah.
So that's why there's this theory is that the makeup is delicious to the face mites, but I don't know. Yeah, again,
interesting.
Like without a scientific argument.
All right, I'll wash my face, you guys.
Oh, they're so tiny. Oh my God. I'm looking at them on people's eyelashes.
Excellent.
There can be so many of them all around.
Now I have to look at them.
God! I won't. I know not everybody wants to look at this. We've got people in the chat room who are like, what are you talking about?
Oh, they look almost like little tardigrades.
Yeah, they look like tardigrades.
Yeah, they're cute.
Yeah.
They're like,
I'm never washing my face
tails.
again.
They've got little fleshy tails that they can.
I'm never washing my face again.
They look like platypus tardigrades. Tardigrades.
Tardigrades.
Tortipus, platygrades. They're so cute. His name's Earl.
His name's
that's what an infestation looks like. Ooh. Look. Ew. Oh my gosh, this is very cool.
It's so cool, right? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Go away, Helpline.
Oh, they do look
aren't they adorable?
They look like a combination between a tardigrade and a platypus.
A platygrade. That's what we just said.
Platygrade.
Is that what you're saying?
That's
oh my gosh.
Oh, we were kind of looking at each other and giggling about it, but yeah. Oh, they're so cute. I mean, they look a slightly less cute with its face buried in skin.
Right.
Sure.
They're these tiny things. They live live on us. And they can
It's so cool, you guys.
We're just a
live in
city
our
bus. is the thing.
eyelashes.
That's kind of big, actually. Are we sure that's not like, that's big?
Like
That's
lice.
I know. Is that really just a mite? That's
Yeah. That's
it
big for a
might be
mite.
something else.
It might
But
be a
maybe when
clump
you
of
have an
mice.
infestation, it becomes something
Right.
Yeah.
They engorge.
different. Ha ha.
You say things so bad to me.
Stop screen.
Yeah,
I'll
we're just a city bus for micro.
I'm gonna wash my face tonight
Yeah.
with a
don't wanna-
washcloth
you
and
don't want a
scrub.
population surge on your face.
I'm never going to do it again.
Let us know how that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
as
let us-
conjunctivitis in both eyes next week.
Yeah.
Stop washing my face. I don't know why this happened.
What happened there? Oh my god.
Now managing a community. That's all I'm doing.
It's a city bus.
Oh.
You're a landlord.
El Presidente.
I might be El Presidente.
Oh, nice.
All right. Blair, you went away for 2 seconds. I'm going to fact check and double check your calendar,
Great.
and I'll get back to you, and then we'll do the ordering and stuff maybe early next week.
Okay. Great.
Sound good?
Yeah, my contact at the company should be pretty quick with the code. So, like 24 hours notice, I should be able to get it.
Is there a time that is at like a cutoff to order one?
No.
No, pre-orders are nice because then we know how many to order. But
Sure.
we'll have a number that's not part of the pre-order for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, we buy extras, and we usually leave it up until. Oh, usually we leave the link up until about the end of the year, but it's usually
Nice.
until we're like, we don't have any left to sell.
We're excited to order one.
Yay!
We're excited to order one.
Yay! Awesome. Yeah. So let's have a drink sometime in Portland.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Yes.
We have many things we can discuss
Many, many things.
off camera.
All
Love
things.
that. Would love that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good.
And where are you, Justin?
I am currently in a hotel room in the city of Davis, California.
Oh, nice.
Ah.
But I will be back in Denmark for the next show.
Oh whoa!
And for a couple of weeks after that, and then you'll be back in Davis again.
Yeah, it'll be back and forth for the foreseeable future.
Is Denmark where you live all the time?
No, Davis is a hometown. But
Oh,
I've
nice.
been going to Denmark a bunch lately.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's actually amazingly this connection being here in Davis at this hotel was much worse than more laggy and dropouty than being 6,000 more miles away.
That kind of, yeah. Denmark. I feel like Denmark's got their stuff together about.
They are so wide. They do
Yeah.
everything now. Is like you have everywhere you go to park is through an app. All of your free healthcare, your everything is through an app. Like they can get married through an app. Like everything is like they don't do.
Justin, is
say-
there something you need to tell us?
They don't have to go physically
slide right.
into
I
talking
do.
to a human meet space anything for anything now. Yeah,
That's crazy.
they've gone all in.
Denmark is a place I've always wanted to go.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Yeah, Denmark is a friendly place. It's a very friendly place full of mostly happy people with really good public transportation.
All right.
So you're never more than a couple blocks from. And I went to, oh my gosh, and it's very sciencey, or at least I've been experiencing it this way. I got to go to a really nice talk on animal emotion.
Franz de Waal, right?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, and then I'm going to some sort of a TEDx thing.
Cool.
on,
Cool.
Saturday. So
Nice.
Very, very cool. Well, have fun.
Yeah.
Very jet lagged for that. It'll be
Safe travels.
It's worth it. It'll be fun. Oh my goodness. Speaking of jet lag, I don't have it, but I am getting ready to. I think it's about bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair.
Good night, Blair.
Say
Good night, Blair.
Good night, Justin.
Good night, Justin.
Good night,
Say
Justin.
goodnight, bug chicks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, Kiki.
night. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night, y'all.
Everyone have a wonderful week. We'll be back again next week. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Bye.